Call to order.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yeah.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
All present.
Moment of silence. Thank you. All rise for the pledge of music.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Gonzalez, is there any agenda changes or additions?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Thanks. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the agenda as given this evening.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Certification of matters discussed in closed session. Have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to certify discussion in closed session dealt with personal matters, section 2.2-37, 11A1.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Okay, on to open budget hearing. Have a motion. The last time you did a motion.
First, I got a message from someone saying there's no audio on YouTube.
Yeah.
You think it's because you muted us?
No, you're not muted.
Oh.
That's why I don't understand.
Could it be their computer?
No.
Mr. Moran, while he's working on that, did you see if there's anyone out there? There's no one? Perfect.
Nikki Clark said I can hear you.
Okay, I'm getting reports that people can't hear it.
Okay. All right, so I need a motion for,
I make a motion that we open the budget hearing.
Second?
have a motion and a second.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Motion passed.
Comments?
There are none.
Thank you. Okay, do I have a
I
motion?
make a motion that we close the budget hearing.
So I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
The motion passed.
Now, we're on to the other citizen comment period.
We have, 4.
Okay. And we have the
Video.
video. It's the board's pleasure to do the video first or do that last?
Or read my 6 pages.
Or,
I say we do, let the
People go
say-
first?
people go first, yeah.
Okay, I agree.
and I believe they will be together.
And the daughter.
Right, and
Who's coming
Do we know their names?
yeah, here, go. Molly, go.
Okay. And limit their comments to 3 minutes. Yes. please.
They're all together, it's 4 people. That's why I don't want to-
It must be a family. I think it's about right. I know the father and the daughter is, I don't know the others about the same.
Good evening.
Though, if you could state your name and your address,
My name is Derek Goebel, 622 Woodside Drive, Rileyville, Virginia.
okay, and we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes.
I will try. I haven't timed myself on this yet, but I'll try. First, I'll say greetings to everyone. Thank you for allowing us this time to speak. My name is Derek Goebel. My daughter Molly is a senior at Luray High School. I'm here tonight along with these 3 young students who to advocate for Luray High School and Page County High School for the class of 2021 and having an in-person graduation for them this year. The last year has presented our students, faculty, parents and grandparents, and staff of the Page County High School. I'm going to take one of these off so I can breathe. Excuse me 1 minute. Okay. With unprecedented challenges. Along the way, we have done our best to meet these challenges and come up with creative ways to work within the guidelines and new protocol of living through a pandemic. While I call into question some of those decisions, I think overall PCPS has done a good job in protecting our students, faculty, and staff. Today, as we begin to see a decrease in the number of cases, hospitalizations, and deaths, we need to stay vigilant in continuing to protect everyone at PCPS and our community. We must look at what is working and what is not, to follow Centers for Disease Control guidelines and administer and act with prudence to salvage what is left of the 2021 school year, especially for our seniors, who will not get the opportunity to experience all the events that they have missed out on the past year. While every grade has faced their disappointments this year, I believe the passing of one's final year in secondary education has been especially difficult for the morale of the senior class. This is why I, along with others here tonight, believe that we need to give our seniors something to look forward to, something to cap this academic year of uncertainty and disillusionment. We believe PCPS can use the current science available and common sense to help keep the students and families in our community safe and healthy while offering a ceremony to mark graduation from high school. This is why we are advocating for an in-person outdoor graduation to mark this momentous occasion in their lives. Our seniors have faced academic challenges this year like no other senior class before them, and they deserve to be recognized for their dedication and hard work. A well-planned and administered outdoor graduation ceremony is not only possible, it has been safely done for other events within PCPS and around the country. The CDC has specific guidelines for outdoor events like this that can be easily followed and enforced. My proposal to you is this. We, the parents and students of the Luray and Page County class of 2021, will form a committee to explore options to hold an outdoor graduation ceremony that will follow all current and necessary CDC guidelines that can provide a safe, socially distanced, and COVID-friendly event.
Mr. Doble,
Yes.
it's been 3 minutes.
Okay, can I have just one more? Because I'm trying to catch my breath here through half of it.
Okay.
I'm almost finished, I promise. We will present our ideas to the Page County School Board and administrative staff of LHS and work with you to orchestrate and administrate a graduation celebration worthy of our senior class. We would like to have this on the agenda for next month. We are not reinventing the wheel here. There is a wealth of information on how to plan an event like this to keep our community safe. We have an opportunity to give the class of 2021 a wonderful send-off to their next phase of life, to celebrate their achievements in front of those most important to them, and truly say we are proud of them and that they are worth the effort. Thank you.
Hi,
Please state your name and your address.
Matt Rooks, 66 Willow Street, Luray, Virginia.
Step up to the mic.
Can you hear me?
Well, it's about, others can hear you.
Oh, okay, sorry. Speaking on behalf of the graduating class of 2021 for both Luray High School and Page County High School students, it is valuable for us to have a proper graduation this year. It has not been easy for us seniors. We have missed out on all the regular senior activities that are planned during the school year. We lost our senior homecoming, senior sports, senior prom, and senior trip. We would greatly appreciate it if you as the board considered an outdoor graduation for both schools. Possible idea to an outdoor graduation would be on the football field with the stage set at the end zones and everyone at a responsible distance with masks at all time. This is just an idea and there are plenty more that everyone around us have thought about. It is important to us that we graduate with our classmates. It means everything to us, especially after such a rough and disappointing year. I, as a person, Matt Rooks, started a petition last Friday evening, and it already has 590 signatures from people in our community agreeing with the idea that an outdoor graduation for our graduating class would be greatly appreciated. Please take an outdoor graduation into consideration from both Luray High School and Page County High School seniors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just say one more thing?
Oh, well, we have to first let the ladies, if they have anything.
Do you have anything to add?
Okay. Okay.
I'll speak a little more from the heart here, but these kids have worked really hard. And I know there have been disappointments everywhere around the country and certainly in Page County within the school system for teachers, for staff, for faculty, everyone involved with the Page County school system. This is one thing that we can do. We can honor our seniors at least. Last year we did a virtual graduation, I think to the effect of around $10,000. If we plan this right, if you allow the parents, the students working with you to plan a graduation, we can do something that will cost the Page County school system a lot less money and provide the kids with the ability to stand in front of their peers and graduate, which they didn't get last year. I can't advocate enough for this. This has been done. You know, people are having events all over the place, outside events, CDC, Dr. Fauci, they're all talking, they're all saying the same things, that outdoor events with masks, with social distancing, there's very little risk of spread. We'd like to plan a graduation based on what is happening now, today with COVID. We will adjust it as we go into closer to May, when graduation will happen. And then we can sort of, we can look at what we need to adjust and what we don't need to adjust. I've already talked with some parents who are more than willing to get on a committee to help plan this thing, to work with you, so that we can, again, give them what they deserve. It's not a lot to ask for. It's a safe event. I know in the past, a long time ago, we had rain during graduation. All we need to do is set a rain date. We can also have it in the rain. If there's not lightning involved, we play sports in the rain, we can have a graduation in the rain. We're not talking about filling the stands or filling the whole field with people. We're talking about getting the people that are most important to them, but mostly the ones that are most important are their class. They want to do this with their class. They want their parents or grandparents to be able to see them graduate. I don't think that's a lot of people involved. We have a class of, 120? That's not many people when you add it all up. We have a big football field. I already have ideas. We'd like to share those with you. All we're asking, put it on the agenda. Let us work with you. Let us form a committee so that we can make this happen for them. They deserve it. Okay, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like me to read comments or watch the video comment first?
Watch the video one and then you can.
Okay.
Really?
Is this a student?
It's a student, they had asked me how they wanted to put a face to it. And so I had asked Mr. Breeden and it was submitted to Linda in time.
Okay.
High School. Good afternoon. My name is Tori Davis, a resident of Shenandoah, Virginia. I am a high school senior at Page County High School. I appreciate Dr. Painter for giving me this opportunity since I could not be present at the meeting tonight. I speak with hopes that I can grant my fellow classmates, parents, and teachers validation of their overwhelming sense of hopelessness. First off, I would like to share my involvement with Page County High School. I have been involved in the Page County sports, music department, numerous clubs, and a class officer since my freshman year. Before COVID, I was second in my class, graduating with my associate's degree, CNA, and 3 certificates to my name. Now I am no longer second in my class, and I am not able to complete one of the certificates, which I would have been the first student in Page County to receive. As a senior, I will say the majority has given up and are doing the bare minimum. So instead, tonight I speak mostly for the underclassmen whose future is most at risk. With so much to say in such a short period of time, I want to show the reality of the students' lives right now. Face-to-face learning is not all that it was made out to be. High school parents, ask your students to walk you through a typical day. You will soon learn that we have been set up for failure because the majority are doing the same thing within the school that they are doing at home. 939 votes went into the parent survey, and only 79 students did not have the internet for live virtual classes. So instead of collaborating with other local school boards to provide for those 100 students, you made the decision to let over 1,000 students suffer. My therapist, who works with numerous school teachers and students from surrounding counties, said this is a form of neglect in many different aspects, and she is correct. All of the surrounding schools are back in and teaching. On the Page County 2020-2021 instructional plan, it states the vision: we aspire to engage, encourage, and empower the next generation of learners, thinkers, and leaders. And the mission: we exist to provide an engaging, encouraging, and empowering learning environment that promotes student success. The relevant core values: persistence, working through difficulties despite opposition; responsibility, being reliable, dependable, and owning your actions and decisions; integrity, being honest and transparent with moral and ethical principles; excellence, committing to doing and giving your best in everything and not settling. The majority of us believe that you have failed to provide an engaging learning experience. You have failed to provide hope to empower us. You have failed to provide us with a successful learning environment. There is no persistence or excellence, because if that were the case, you would not have settled with just passing, because this is not learning, and we will not succeed compared to other schools. And it is not the students' fault, because school is now a negative emotion that they do not want to deal with. Therefore, they're procrastinating. It is not our teachers' fault, because they have 4 times the workload than before, and I have watched the stress age my teachers. My freshman year, my mom asked, "Does Page County lower their standards to allow for a higher success rate?" And you have shown this to be true. It is too late to change the damage done, but I hope if this continues into next year, you will take a different approach. I think that my fellow 2021 seniors can say that we have been absolutely robbed, and our feelings have not been validated. Honestly, there is nothing that can be said or done to make up for that. Sports teams are traveling maskless, and we can't even have a single normal memory within the school. What will our yearbook look like without any memories? Since you have stolen everything else, we deserve and honestly demand a normal high school graduation on the football fields, and even possibly walk through the hallways of our elementary school one last time, dressed in our cap and gown to provide hope and inspiration to those young minds. It is the least that you can do. Thank you for your time and understanding.
Okay, I have a bunch of written comments that were emailed in. Our names are Scott and Lori Alger from Luray. Our daughter is a first-year student at LHS and made the varsity sideline cheer squad, and she's also on the competition cheer team. To her, this is a huge accomplishment, only to be told they cannot cheer at any games because they would be considered spectators. We as cheer parents don't understand this reasoning. Yes, the governor made this is executive order, but he recently changed it to now allow 250 spectators per field instead of the original 25 spectators. It is easy to social distance outside. While families can sit together, they can still social distance 6 feet apart from other families. So we still don't understand why the cheerleaders can't cheer and still be counted as spectators. It is unfair for the entire team and the 5 senior girls that are on the squad to not be able to go out there and cheer for their team. To be called spectators is wrong. They are athletes, just like the football players or basketball players. They work hard all summer, practicing 5 days a week. Please consider and allow these cheerleaders the opportunity to show their bulldog pride and cheer for their team on the field. These players deserve to have the cheerleaders rooting them on, and that gives them the extra energy to bring home a win for the team. Again, thank you for your time and listening, and hope that you will make a decision that is right for the entire team to cheer. They deserve it. Thank you, Scott and Lori Alger. John Griffith, 104 Eden Road. Dear school board administrators and board members, as one of many concerned, exhausted, and stressed parents, ask that you please reconsider using remote learning days as part of the 2021-2022 normal school schedule. I recognize there are some standards to get in a specific amount of days, 180 for a complete school year. Please realize that these standards do not make it acceptable to ignore the current academic and emotional state of our children, your students. We cannot afford to disservice students any longer by scheduling a valuable day of in-school instruction out of the classroom just to meet a number or a quota. Completing the school year by Memorial Day or giving extra time at Christmas to shop or travel should not be the priority here. Please look at this from the perspective of a student's well-being. First and foremost, every day of remote learning is another missed opportunity for in-class instructional time that is vital in catching students back up academically. As a reminder, this catching up is a direct result of the ineffectiveness of remote learning during the pandemic. Also, understand that there will be a level of post-pandemic anxiety of many students due to the loss of valuable in-class instruction and daily interactions with teachers and peers. Implementing random and unnecessary remote learning days back into their lives could be catastrophic to them emotionally. Younger children develop a fear of another pandemic by association is a very real possibility. I speak not only for my own children, but for the children that have. Parents who work long hours or multiple jobs, parents with disabilities, parents with addictions, no one that speaks English in their home, and so many other children who have no choice but to try to complete this remote schoolwork on their own. If you followed social media during the pandemic, I'm sure you've seen the many local children devastated and in tears because they don't want to be with their friends, because they want to be with their friends and cannot learn sufficiently at home without the proper resources. Likewise, consider the children with disabilities that need the special training that is received in the classroom. Most importantly, consider the many children suffering from abuse at home and look forward to a day at school as an escape to safety. All these children should be your main motivation for decision making. not meeting a number or quota. Over this past year, remote learning has consistently proven ineffective at keeping all students caught up and has left many behind. There has been an immeasurable amount of stress put on students, parents, teachers, and staff, all mostly due to absence from the classroom. Remote learning is more pre-planning and a logistical nightmare for teachers, impossible to manage for parents, and has no real educational value for students. Therefore, it's a lose-lose for everyone involved. The average parent does not have a personal tutor completing this remote work for their child while they're at work. The stress, cost, and inconvenience of finding childcare on a random day out of school with the added task of trying to complete a full day's worth of schoolwork is absolutely terrifying for working parents. Also, as was stated in your February 8th school board meeting, teachers will not even be available as a resource on these remote days. How will student-parent questions related to remote work be answered in order for it to be turned in the next day? What about the many parents, guardians in the county that work non-traditional hours? Healthcare, first responders, manufacturing, retail stores, out-of-town work. These parents work 12-hour shifts or longer, night shifts, swing shifts, etc. The stress of completing a full day's worth of remote work to be turned the next day is unimaginable and downright impossible. The decision for using remote learning as a substitute for in-person instruction at any time is a serious life-altering impact to our children. If you think that remote learning isn't a major concern for the majority of students and parents in Page County, then there is a circulating petition with many signatures and comments just within the last week that says otherwise. Please listen to the parents on this matter, as we have seen the issues firsthand. Most of these issues can be resolved through our authority by keeping students in the classroom for the upcoming school year and all those that come thereafter. We need to stop using the virtual Band-Aid for every school situation and start planning ahead for ways to bring back in-person life to our students when it's safe to do so. Let's focus on what is best for the future of our children, your students, as we all move forward together out of uncharted waters of the pandemic. We owe it to them. Sincerely, John Griffith. Tanya Griffith, 2203 Dry Run Road, Luray. After listening to the school board meeting and the discussion surrounding graduation this year, I believe we are not doing all we can for our seniors by reviewing all possible options. I recognize that COVID-19 requires the school board to take serious precautions and follow safety guidelines, but it's too early to decide on a virtual graduation similar to last year. Our seniors have already lost so much. They have missed their junior prom, junior year spring athletics, a traditional school year, and all the little celebrations that take place for seniors during a school year, senior homecoming, and traditional senior year athletic seasons. The least we can do for our seniors is put full effort into planning a more traditional graduation ceremony while still considering safety precautions and COVID-19 guidelines, one which would be more affordable than $10,000 expense of cameras and videography. Our seniors deserve for our school board administrators to take time in making this decision while seriously considering all options. One of these options should be an outdoor graduation ceremony. This will no doubt require more planning. It will necessitate waiting to hear what guidelines and gathering restrictions will be in place in Virginia, as well as full cooperation from PCPS, families, and the community. But with proper planning and protocols, it can be done safely. Using past rain and storm conditions as a justification for proceeding in an all-virtual graduation is taking the easiest route and not what our students deserve. Some school districts are not ever able to have indoor ceremonies due to class size and the ability to accommodate guests. Our senior class at Luray High is approximately 120 students and can be easily distanced on a football field. The possibility of rain or storms should not be the reason to avoid an outdoor celebration. It takes place earlier in the day, you lower the chances of thunder and lightning storms. A rain date can easily be scheduled in the case of this situation occurring. Of course, we are aware of COVID-19 and the risks, but we also need to consider those numbers in our community, state, and across the country are trending down while vaccinations are going up. Governor Northam has already raised the limits on spectators at outdoor. With COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations trending down, we can expect an increase in gathering limits will continue to expand. I've spoken with many parents who believe that we can safely have a graduation ceremony and still be safe. Here are some options to be considered with a live stream, also available for those who cannot attend due to COVID precautions and concerns. Option 1, the most traditional and what we should work toward. Graduation ceremony outside on the football field. The approximately 120 seniors socially distanced on the field, maybe with the stage located at the end zone. This will allow both the home and guest stands to be utilized for guests as well as the grassy sections and the track. This arrangement will allow for social distancing for students and families. Please reconsider your decision. While these options will require more planning from administration and faculty and cooperation from families, in-person graduation should at least be planned. Our graduating seniors deserve at least this from their community. Please remember that these kids have already lost so much. Let's give them this. I will be willing to do whatever is necessary to help. Thank you, Tanya Griffith, mother of a 2021 high school senior. Tim Lansbury, 116 Joeville Lane, Luray. I write in support of removing the remote learning days from the PCPS school calendar for the 21-22 school year. Speaking for and representing a household of 2 full-time working parents with what will be a second grader, the burden on the parents to attempt to teach on remote days, work full-time, and be a parent is quite the load to bear. The educational environment of the school setting is not one that can be duplicated at home, no matter how hard you try. Not only do the remote learning days add additional stress to the parents and students, but also additional stress to the teachers, especially those who have to teach their own children at home as well. Please consider these factors when making your decisions on the calendar for next school year. Keith Griffith, 2203 Dry Run Road, Luray. To the School Board of Page County, I'm a 1990 graduate of Luray High School and have a senior graduating this year, and I'm asking for you to consider the option of having an outdoor ceremony for the 2021 graduation. These kids have missed out on so much this year, and at least having an outside ceremony would give them a somewhat normal graduation by number one, being able to sit with and graduate with their classmates with the new amount of gathering given by the governor. Number two, they will also be able to have their families there to watch. I know a concern is setting up 2 different spaces in case of weather, but this type of graduation took place for years, even in 1990, and things always worked out. Plus, we graduated at the old high school where chairs had to be set up for everyone, the graduates and families, where now you have the football field stands for families to sit in with social distancing taking place and able to spread out the graduates on the field. How this works is the graduates are responsible to help with setup, and it is a must to graduate in the day. And I'm sure there will be more than enough help from parents. So again, I beg you to reconsider your decision and give these kids something this year. Thanks for your consideration, Keith Griffith. Wayne and Judy Griffith, Luray. These precious students are our future people. Have you no conscience of what you're doing to them? What kind of future do you have if you can't compete with the rest of the world? Come to your senses and put your pride to the side, and those of you who wanted to take the position you're in, why did you take it? To back down because the majority disagrees with you. You have the opportunity right now to make this right for these precious and very smart minds. Stand up to those who refuse to use their common sense in this matter, and you will know at least you did the right thing. Our children are suffering from all of this. Can't you open your eyes to see this? As officials, you're in your position for our children, no one else. We ask you to reconsider and remove the remote learning schedule. Also, please give our seniors the graduation they truly deserve. You hold the key. Which store will you use it on? Thank you. And finally, Samantha, 1171 West Main Street. There's no town. Please allow these kids to go back to school. My daughters are failing because videos and notes does not do them justice. They need to be able to ask questions and bounce ideas from teachers. I'm a nurse, and I do believe with the current situation, kids would be fine to go back. And I, for one, know that I'm not the only parent to want their kids to go back. Their education is very important. They need their education, and these kids need school not only because of that, but school for more underprivileged kids. They need that everyday structure to keep them out of things and off the streets. Kids need education, and kids need structure, and yes, us as parents can give them structure at home, but we're not teachers. And most of us work 5 days a week in all kinds of hours. And as far as graduation goes, those kids have missed their entire senior year. The last thing they need is no graduation with their families. Let them have this. They missed out on so much this entire school year. No prom, no senior trip, no senior pictures, no friends. They haven't got to do anything that you were able to enjoy your senior year. So please just consider letting these kids graduate and have one normal thing out of their whole year, and that is to have an in-person graduation.
Thank you, Dr. Painter. Now on to minutes from January. You have access to them on Google Docs if you can review, and if there's any changes, could you please let Linda know? And then we'll approve them at the next board meeting. What did I say? Oh, I'm sorry. I got Google on mine, but board docs. Information item, I ready, Mr.
Can,
He lined up the video presentation with the representatives from the company, so that's who we'll be hearing from tonight from iReady.
Okay, not from Mr. Hopkins.
No, he arranged it though.
Okay.
Hi, yes, good evening, Page County Public Schools School Board and school community. Thank you for having the iReady team. I know that Dr. Benson did an introduction, but I'd like to introduce ourselves again. My name is Shanique Min-Smith, and I'm the educational consultant for Virginia. I'm based right here in Virginia in the Williamsburg area. And on the Zoom call with me, I have our Director of Sales for our region, Patty Kuklinski. And then I also have my colleague, Skip Hackworth, who is a sales specialist who supports Virginia as well, particularly the western part of Virginia where you guys are. So again, I just want to say good evening and thank you for allowing us to share with you information about the iReady system, which is a tool that your school division is interested in using to support student learning. And so I'm going to first start out with providing an overview of the program, and then I will allow time and opportunity for the board to ask questions or any members in the community to ask questions. But basically, iReady currently is a tool that we're piloting in the elementary schools to support math instruction. And what essentially it is a program, or I honestly like to call it a system, because what it does is it allows teachers to be able to get insight about their students' learning through finding information about their strengths as well as their students' weaknesses. And then it connects that information to instruction. And there are different modes of instruction that students can engage in. They can engage in student-led instruction, which you see here represented in blue, or teacher-led instruction that teachers can utilize and support their student learning as well. And all of that is driven from that orange portion that we see along the top, which are the different types of assessments that students can engage in to give teachers that insightful information. Now, we call it a system because it all works together, making it so that teachers do what I know you want your teachers to do, and what they do best is to teach. Our goal is to take out the many steps that many educators have to do to get to being able to provide quality teaching. We try to cut out those steps by making it so that teachers are able to get great information about their students so that they can teach. And more than ever, our teachers are going to need that support and that ability to be able to get right to teaching, to be able to accelerate student learning. So how is this able for educators in Page County? Well, it's going to first start out with a diagnostic. This is a diagnostic that has been administered to over 9 million students throughout the nation. And this diagnostic is also adaptive on a K-12 continuum. So what we mean by that is it's going to adjust based on how the students in Page County respond. So if they get the questions correct, it will adjust up to a higher level potentially. If they get the questions incorrect, it will adjust down to a lower level. And it kind of follows that pattern of adjusting until we get the level that's just right for the students in Page County. It is a diagnostic for reading and mathematics, but we are using this to support math instruction. And it's also an assessment that's highly correlated and a good prediction for how students will perform on our state standards. This diagnostic also provides insightful information to every student in Page County's understanding of math concepts, and then it connects the information that that teacher gains from this diagnostic to instructional resources and guidance for the teacher to be able to strengthen the strengths that students have in mathematics, as well as support them with any gaps that they may have in mathematics. This diagnostic will also automatically group students with their peers who also have some learning gaps in mathematics. And then you probably recall that our goal is to always direct teachers to resources so that they can teach. So within that same report that will group the students, teachers also have access to guidance around how to address students with those skill gaps in that particular group, and lesson activities that are embedded in that data report. The diagnostic will also create a personalized learning path for each of the students in Page County. These lessons are very engaging lessons. We pride ourselves in really literally using research to determine the engagement level of the lessons. The lessons also provide explicit instruction. So this was very helpful this year for the hybrid model that we had going on in Page County at the earlier part of this year, because students were able to work on these independently without much need of help from their families. We pride ourselves in making sure that we have audio and visual supports so that every student has an equitable experience with iReady. We also include another way for students to learn math concepts in a fun and engaging way through our math learning games. And what they essentially utilize for is to give students more opportunities to practice math skills, as I mentioned, in a fun and engaging way. And from these games, not only can the teacher see how much time that the student spends, as well as see his or her progress, but then the teacher also gets some insight into what we like to call that social and emotional well-being of a student, where it gives the teacher some insight about a student's factors of learning. So while the student is playing the game, the system will actually record the student and collect data, and that data will give the teacher information about the student's growth mindset or their confidence level, or how they strategically attack problems based on their productive strategy. So it really just gives even more insightful information and kind of taps into that social and emotional well-being of our students, which will be important as well. In addition to having that automated differentiated instruction and then the math learning games, Page County teachers also have access to the Teacher Toolbox, which is a digital filing cabinet of resources. Regardless of what grade level that teacher teaches in the elementary schools, she will have resource, or he will have resources from grades K through 8. So again, just going back to who we are, is that what we're designed to do is make it so that teachers can gather their information and teach. So in this instance, a 4th grade teacher, if she has some students who are performing below level or even above level, she can just go to this Teacher Toolbox here and pull resources. She doesn't have to go down the hall trying to find resources to be able to support her students. And these resources include things such as actual lessons, actual opportunities for students to get more practice in mathematics, interactive tutorials, additional lessons and assessments, lessons for her to be able to introduce a skill or concept, which we call prerequisite lessons. Center activities, which are opportunities for students to work with their peers on math concepts. And then most importantly, enrichment activities for our students who are very strong in math and they need to be extended. So that teacher toolbox is right there at the teacher's fingertips, and just another additional tool to complement the student's automated personalized learning path. Another thing we're very excited to launch this year in response to COVID and us needing some insight around students' learning loss is Standards Mastery for Virginia, which is a part of our assessment suite that's customized specifically for Virginia. It was developed with Virginia educators in mind, also with Virginia educators being a part of the development process. And so what it does is it just, again, is another part of the iReady system that provides teachers with an opportunity to do like little temperature checks to see how students are progressing through the instruction that Page County has, the pacing of the instruction that Page County has developed for the teachers. So the beauty of the iReady system, and especially in response to COVID and just this very unique school year, is then two, just the flexibility in instruction delivery. Though we hope that our world will go back to normal school year, you know, even when we think about the winter storms that we just recently encountered in Virginia, teachers can easily change the instructional delivery. So if students need to be home and engage in remote learning, they can easily do that through the iReady system. The teacher can still communicate and send resources by utilizing that teacher toolbox, which can be uploaded into the systems that the Page County has in place to be able to communicate learning to students. And we pride ourselves in also making it so that families can easily engage with their students. What you see here is what it looks like from a student's perspective as well as the family's perspective, where they can easily see how much time their child or the student is spending on iReady, how many lessons they passed, as well as can see the different lessons that the teacher assigned. Because though I mentioned that iReady will automatically create a learning path, teachers also have the ability to assign lessons based on what he or she thinks is best for that individual student. And so parents can access this information here. Families can also see how their students are progressing. What you see here are screenshots of our reports that educators in Page County can send home to families, and a nice, easy to read format for families to see how their students are progressing in mathematics throughout the year. And then some additional supports for families, as we have a dedicated YouTube channel for families to be able to again, learn more about iReady or to troubleshoot any issues, though we don't have many. There are family guides on our website, along with tips to continue to keep their student engaged. And most importantly, any technical support, and it's written in a nice, easy to read, family-friendly language. And then most importantly, what we do is we can also offer any family webinars for the school community in Page County. This is something that we do as a company to just ensure that all students are successful. We did this year and served over 1,500 families in Virginia. And we were able to do that because of the support that you have from the iReady team. In addition to my colleagues who are on the call, we also have a network of support from individuals who support with the professional development for the teachers, along with an account manager who will work very closely with Dr. Benson and Mr. Hopkins and your school division in general to provide data reports per your requests, technical support, and then most importantly, myself, your educational consultant, to just ensure you have the right resources so that every student in Page County is successful in mathematics. This professional development is really designed to not just teach teachers how to use our product, but how to really use information to be able to guide student learning in mathematics. So though they will utilize our tool to be able to do this, they are learning skills or enriching their skills around being able to really create what we call in education a data-driven culture, where they're using information to determine their next steps for their students. And this will be done throughout the whole potential 3 years of our partnership. And though I know I've mentioned about our professional development, but here's a quote from a neighboring district who happened to be a math lead specialist within the division on her thoughts and insights about the service that we provide. And I have to leave you with information about what a teacher at Luray Elementary School mentioned in response to just engaging with the iReady system, as well as engaging in the professional development that we provide. This teacher mentioned that they feel confident that they can implement iReady. And that's because iReady is this one system that does it all to make it easy for teachers to do what they do best and what we need them to do, and that's to teach. So that pretty much concludes my overview of the iReady system. I'd like to use this opportunity to see if there are any questions about the iReady program, or if there's any additional information that you would like for me to share this evening, or perhaps even follow up, depending on your request. So any questions?
Be viewed over the computer from home, the parent log in and see their progress and get that report, or does that report have to be printed at every school for every student and be sent home?
So it was actually two screens, Shasta, that showed you. One is one in which the parent can log in and see the student's progress. And then one, the actual report would be the one that the teacher would have to print out. So this one in particular would be the one that the teacher can print out, but it can also be printed out as a batch. So we could have like the school administrator, the principal, to print like the whole school out, and they could be sent home, yes. Or as I mentioned, parents can log in to their students' iReady account. We use the same account for parents as well as we do students. We just try to make everything streamlined. I know some programs have one for parents and one for students. We use the same one. So the parent will log in just as their student does. And if they click on the My Progress, they can just kind of get this general overview of their child's progress. But as I mentioned, you know, this particular report would be one that the teacher would have to print, but administrators can print it up. Even division level members can print batch reports for every student in the school. Great question. For taking the time to learn more about iReady. We are really looking forward to a partnership with Page County Public Schools. And please, any information that you need, please do not hesitate to have your division to reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to share that information with you. But again, thank you and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Page County.
Okay, a quick question. Is the iReady for next school year?
No, they started using it now. We've
Now.
had 74% of our students already take the initial diagnostic test.
Okay,
It's already being implemented.
because of that report being generated by a teacher or faculty somewhere and being sent home, is there an allocation of paper increased for each school? And is that in the budget for?
I cannot answer that question, so, because right now have they even sent a copy home yet, Mr. Benson? No, yeah, because we're still in the diagnostic stages. of
Okay,
getting
and
it.
how many per year is that gonna be sent home? And I'm just worried about the paper, because I know there's a lot of paper being used in school already. And
It
then
is,
this one additional report, if it's being sent home 4 times a year,
right.
then that's 4 more pages per student. And I'm just worried about the paper allotment for each school and then the cost that adds on to our next budget.
We will add that then in consideration to do that, as well as the staff is getting trained in it and administrators, they need to look at the usefulness of that particular report to see how often that needs to go, if it needs to go in each quarter, each semester, or year end. But we need to be able to account for that paper usage, so thank you for that.
I would suggest maybe we, print the PDF and we could share those reports electronically and that might help us save on.
Right. It's just the cost factor, and had that been factored in was just my question, you know. However, you may choose to give it to the parents, but I was looking at the cost factor,
Right.
and that raises the paper allotment and therefore the cost, and if that was in the budget for next year.
Right. We could also look into loading it up on Schoology to have it available for parents, and then those who don't have access to that, we could sometimes pay for help with
Yeah.
the paper count.
Okay.
And that would be printed on both sides. Those
That's what we're
reports are
trying to do
printed.
anyway, so I would imagine we'll continue to look at that.
The board have any other questions on it?
So is this being used at all grade levels now or just elementary?
Elementary.
Just elementary, okay.
Is the primary focus just at elementary, or do they do middle school as well?
They do all K
They,
through 12.
they do all the way, up to 8 right now, but we just purchased it for the elementary schools.
So you can purchase it up to which grade you want.
Right.
Okay, we purchased it through elementary school.
And
Right.
that
And we're focused on math with this particular program, though it does have language arts, so, but we're using Lexia for the language arts piece and iReady for the math piece.
And the teachers are doing that now, and they've been
Yes,
given the staff development and,
yes.
okay.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
And how does feedback come from the teachers on this? When you implement a program like this through the elementary,
Well, it comes back to when we meet with the teachers, or when we meet with the school administrators, or when we walk in the classrooms. I know last year when we were rolling out the Lexia, I was in the classrooms personally asking the teachers and asking students myself. And then Mr. Benson followed up and Mr. Hopkins. And then in our SLT meetings with our school administrators, and they would give the feedback that the teachers are given. So each of us in our rounds at the schools and through more formal settings, we're getting the feedback from the teachers. And then also when you look at the data and you see the good rates we're getting from it, then that just encourages more people to implement it with more fidelity. Now, the iReady is still in its infancy, so we're still doing that process throughout this year of how they're liking that, but that's definitely what we did last year with Lexia.
so do you have graphics that show your progress?
You
in
can,
implementation?
yes, you can print reports that show you that. Much like the Lexia data we gave you last year, we can also do
Yeah, I
that.
would-
It'll be a little different look of report.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see that as well.
Sure.
Kind of
Mr. Benson, can you
verifies
make a note of
everything you're
that?
trying to do.
Sure.
And I know for this year, it's totally out of the question, but we're moving forward with those grade levels who test in math, the correlation, what shows in iReady and then what shows on the state assessment, how closely aligned is that? Is it a good predictor over here in iReady of what you're going to do? And I know this year is going to be off,
Right, it is gonna be off.
but moving forward, have we purchased it for 21, 22?
Yes, we have.
Okay, so
And,
moving forward, could that be
right.
something?
Yes, and sure, and we can look at the white papers, and usually the companies will do those, the analysis for us to see if it's a good predictor for the SOL assessment. The categories now in the iReady, when you look at them, do correlate with our SOL assessment, with our reporting categories that we have. And so that's able to go ahead and, at least it correlates that way for us, so we're able to make some correlations between it. But we can definitely get the white paper information from the company as we analyze those results and share out.
So teachers get that information and they have that pretty reticent for their class of,
I wouldn't say that they have it yet for iReady, because we're still literally
Right.
just starting.
but that's
like a month
possible
ago.
that they
Yes,
could get.
yes, same thing with Lexia.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Moving on to 21, 22, calendar and feedback, Mr. Benson.
Good evening, members of the board. At our last school school board meeting, we did present a draft of the 21-22 school calendar. Following that meeting, we posted that draft to the division website with a Google form for individuals to begin to complete so that we could begin to collect some feedback on what was being proposed. So tonight I have a brief little summary for each of you based upon the feedback we've received thus far. We did have 63 responses to the survey, or individuals that said, I want to make a comment regarding what was being proposed. 55 people, or 87% of those people, were community members. We did have a few staff members that completed it. Staff did have an opportunity to discuss it at their building level as well. And based upon the comments that we received, I started to develop some themes and just kind of tried to outline some of that with you here this evening. Certainly, there was some people that wanted to talk with what the learning model was going to be for the 21-22 school year. We had 5 people that just flat out said, we need to be back in person. We need to stop the remote things that are going on and just come back into the school buildings. We did have a couple of people that advocated for remote learning, continuing that. And then one person suggested we do some what we would call virtual or synchronous learning as well. We did receive some positive comments. I tried to put some of those in quotes for you so you can kind of see what people were saying about that. There were 8 people that said something positive about what they saw. Remote learning, as you heard tonight in citizen comment and on the feedback form here, was a hot topic. And I will say there are people that feel both ways about the remote learning days. There are people that say, be done with the remote learning and go back to the in-person, get them back in school. And as suggested here this evening by the citizen comments, it's not really manageable for working families. And then there were those that said, do more remote learning. There were people that suggested we should have, for instance, Monday and Tuesday of Thanksgiving week, remote learning days. And then, so we would have remote learning Monday and Tuesday, and then followed by the Thanksgiving off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So there were certainly people on both sides. There were people that hinted, there was good use of the remote learning around the election day holiday, around Halloween, a remote learning day at semester for kids to catch up, Easter with the travel that we had mentioned. So there were positive and negative comments regarding, so I tried to reflect that here with you this evening. There was quite a bit of confusion on the calendar draft that there were quite a few people, 7 people that thought we were actually going to school all summer. And that not only were we going to school all summer, but we were going to school 7 to 5 during the summer. And so I just want to make note of that again here this evening with the draft that we had passed out. The SWH does say summer work hours. Those were for employees. And we only included that because it had been the prerogative of the board in previous years to, as part of the calendar vote, say yay or nay to summer working hours for 12-month employees. Moving forward, I think as suggested by Mr. Breeden, the chair, we probably need to develop a staff calendar and then a student calendar, a community calendar for parents and different things. So we will move forward with that suggestion. I think that's a really good one.
Yeah.
To try and avoid some of that confusion.
You could have the instructional calendar,
Sure.
which would be for the students and parents, and then you have the staff calendar,
Yeah.
which would be separate.
Exactly.
I think it didn't help that the governor was mentioned going to school all summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were some people that felt like we shouldn't be having any sort of summer program, that kids needed a break and there needed to just be the traditional summer vacation. So we had folks that voiced that to us. There were 4 individuals that said that. The back to school dates were certainly a hot topic again, and it's all about going to school during the Page County Fair. There were 4 people that said, make it a full day. Don't do away with the early releases. That doesn't really, it's a small number of students that participate in the fair. You guys already make accommodations for them. You excuse their absence, go back to full days for the fair. And then there were people that said, don't even mess with the fair, start after the fair. So there certainly were some opinions there. There were a few other comments that came in, and I kind of bulleted those at the end there about things that came up as part of this. When do we get to drop off kids for the upcoming school year. This year, we moved the drop-off time to 8 a.m. to try to have staff ready and for the temperature checks and the health forms and some of the other things we were doing. But there were certainly some comments on this calendar feedback that said that they would like us to go back to an earlier drop-off time of 7:30 a.m. There were people that commented about eating at the elementary level with their children at lunch again. There were people that were fairly positive that we've just limited the end of the year early releases to just 2 days. They kind of felt like those days were kind of a wash. There was one person that said, do away with the remote learning at Christmas break and just make it an extended vacation, make it a full 2 weeks at Christmas. And then I believe the comment about the teacher workdays came from an employee that just said it's very difficult if you're going to have a remote learning day and that's going to be a staff professional development day. I can't be available to be doing both. I can't be available to be paying attention to the professional development and engage with that and the expectation that I'm monitoring kids and answering questions as remote learning is going on. So I felt like that certainly was a fair comment in that regard. And then there were some people that just took the opportunity to fill out the comment box to talk about things that probably didn't have anything to do with the school calendar, but there was an opportunity given for them to comment. So they started commenting on things like the superintendent search and homework, the amount of homework that's being given. Those things probably don't have anything to do, like I said, with the school calendar, but they did want to make sure. So this is just like an overview. I'm happy to share all of the comments with the board if they would like me to do so. But I have tried to go through and just give you some totals as to where people felt.
Dr. Gonzalez and Mr. Benson, I took note of this in one of the presentations, but I can't remember by the parents or what, but what would it take to do the remote learning days in sequence? In other words, the teacher's teaching up front and the students remotely seeing that?
Complete internet access for all students throughout the division, and that is our problem. That's why we can't do it seamlessly. We're going to attempt to do some at the high school that we'll talk about later tonight, but you'll see what the issues are going to be resulting with that.
But it's not about camera or technology issues within the division?
It's purely broadband access.
Outside.
We have the equipment, right. We have tripods, we have cameras, we've got everything we need in the buildings, it's getting it out to the homes.
So it's the homes needing the access?
Yes.
So there's no more cost incurred on our side, it's what
the county itself needs to get out there to the families, yes.
And how's that going with the county of asking?
Slowly.
Okay.
And the other piece of that, so the families are unable to get their kids to hotspots. That's the other piece, right?
Yes. Now we're seeing where more and more are getting to, we feel like they're finding ways to find the internet.
Okay.
But if you're just a survey, do they have access to it? No, they do not. But they're finding ways around it. And that's going to help us with our plan that we want to present later tonight about the high schools.
I think it needs to be remembered, when we started this school year, we had issues with the number of devices that kids had in their hands. I would have said to you, Mr. Breeden, we did not have the cameras and other equipment. We've been able to put those things in at the high school level. And then the internet is, as Dr. Gonzalez highlighted, is a big factor. There's been many grants that have now come out since this project, since we began the school year. The Page County Connect grant, Liz Lewis is continuing to find internet access for families. Recently, they've gone to the trailers. I don't know if you guys have seen those around the county that are being placed as mobile hotspots. And it's starting to kind of come together. The county started to put the first antenna up on the county office building. The internet is coming here and it's expanding. But those things were not in place when we started this school year.
And
it's a very different situation. And you guys probably, I know it's hard to think back, but we were worried about when we were going to get devices. We started the school year and we didn't have devices for all of the kids. That's a different situation than we're currently here, in now March of 2021.
So it could be remote learning could look entirely different next year than what it looks like this year.
I think Dr. Gonzalez hinted at it. We're hoping that remote learning is going to even look different at the high school level beginning March the 8th.
Oh, perfect. All right. So more to come on that.
Yes.
Okay.
A few more minutes, yeah.
Any questions or other discussion on the calendar?
I do. I guess I have some concerns about the remote learning days that are front-loaded. to the Christmas holiday period. I don't know how much bang for your buck you're gonna get for those 3 remote learning days front loaded. I wonder if some families are either gonna be in the vacation mode, or kids are gonna be checked out, they're not gonna be particularly productive. Families may not be particularly supportive of their kids doing their work. So I just wonder if it makes sense to go full in person or just to do away with those. I know you hinted at that last time.
Yeah.
You thought those 3 days might be.
We've seen feedback both ways, and I'll give you this example, Mr. Rubler. On February 14th, we had Valentine's Day. And Valentine's Day for the elementary kids was very different than I think I've ever seen it at an elementary level. We asked the cards and the snacks to be prepackaged. We asked the cards to come in ahead of time. It's not the same sort of holiday party atmosphere that all of us maybe remember at an elementary school. And so I think some of that's going to move forward, though. That's not going to change as we go forward. So the traditional Christmas get-together where everybody brings something, and it's that fun time of year. I'll just be honest, my personal feeling is that I just don't see a lot of that coming back even next December. I just don't see it. So I think our goal would be to make sure we're instructing right up through those days. And then, we can talk about, what if we want to continue to. I agree with you. I think there will be families that say, it's time, we're going to check out, and so, then does it become some review days? I know it's very difficult if you don't have the majority of the class there to continue with instruction, because what you're doing is when those kids come back, all you have to do is just catch them.
I guess my concern is if it's a single day, like Columbus Day, right?
Right.
And you're asking those kids to do that for one day, I feel like you're gonna get pretty good compliance.
Yeah.
Although some people are really against remote learning at this point. But if a 3-day block's gonna be rough.
Yeah.
For some families or in just the way they feel right now. There's a lot of discontentment towards the remote learning.
And I think, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just think next year is going to be different.
Okay.
I do, because, this school year's calendar, remote learning occurs once a week.
Right.
Next year's school calendar, I think we still got to remember, we're talking about going to school 5 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just the pure number of what we call remote learning days. It's going to be far less than what we've seen this year.
And the challenge is going to be is how, because you're going to change, right? Like right now you have rhythm within remote learning. If we go back 5 days and you have those days here and there, a 3-day period, you've got to make that change that is not going to be routine at that point.
Exactly.
So how that coaching and all that goes along, because I understand it, because when I saw the calendar last time, I was concerned about all the remote learning that you had in there.
Right.
But then once you explained that it would be beneficial for parents, that if they're traveling, that they can download the stuff and they can be doing the stuff earlier, what have you, and you can still count that day as a school day.
Yeah.
I understood that.
There are constraints here. It's a no-win situation in some ways. You're going to make some people, you're not going to be able to please everybody with this calendar. What we were shooting for was 180 days. And certainly we set the precedent here that folks want to be done before Memorial Day or right around there, right around that date. And, the beginning of the school year is what it is. So, to get in 180, I'll just be honest, there had to be some creativity here going on. But I certainly hear what you're saying, and I think we have staff that say, please just bring students to school those days.
I think that, just the phrase remote learning has put a bad taste in people's mouth, because when they think about it, they're thinking about these packets.
Yeah.
And really the schedule isn't any different than a normal year. You have a work day every month. Except now, instead of it just being a work day for teachers, the kids are going to do something at home to count as instruction. But I think we need the message is, it's not new instruction like we're depending on it now,
Right.
basically.
Exactly.
That it's going to be some kind of review that the kids could do independently. And not something for the parent to sit there and teach.
As long as teachers upload it in time,
Something.
right? That nothing's late. I mean, I think it's,
Yeah, it might need a new name.
Well,
Yeah.
hopefully the new name could be virtual learning,
Yeah.
where it's at least asynchronous, where they can at least watch the video at a later time. And that also builds in the flexibility of, out of this whole pandemic mess, we have to look back and say, what did work for us and what didn't? Virtual can work if it's not remote. Like the packets we know, that's probably the worst way you could do it. But hopefully it can be called virtual, so it's either synchronous or it can be asynchronous and allow the flexibilities for the families. So teaching can continue, but they can do it on their own time if they do travel. So I think, maybe we just spin it a little different. The naming convention, I agree with Dr. Painter, does leave a little bad taste in some folks' mouth right now. Yeah.
I just have a question, and this goes back to the student who taught on the video. In the classroom now, when they're in school, they're actually there. Instruction's going on,
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
It's
Yes.
not remote stuff.
Right.
Instruction's going on.
Right, that is
Okay.
correct.
but that's not what I heard her say.
That's not what I've heard, because I've
And that
heard,
concerned me because we've had that discussion before.
I think at the beginning of the year, there were some struggles with trying to figure out that remote learning and doing the jump drives and the videos and getting that all in place, but it's definitely picked up its step in a much better way now. I'm not saying again, it's worked for everybody, and that's where I think as we plan for next year, we need to digress and say what did work, what didn't work, and make those changes, because it's not meeting the needs of all students, this is true.
If there's been a warm-up activity for the class, Ms. Sullivan, in years past, you might have passed out something to get some feedback or done a little warm-up to introduce the lesson. If it's done this year, it's done, we've seen teachers use Schoology to do that. And so if you're at home, you're still doing that warm-up on Schoology, but if you're sitting in the class, the teacher does say, please open your Chromebook and go ahead and complete that activity. So that activity is still considered, something for both. Which I think makes it difficult for folks to understand, like, okay, that's not the teacher standing up and saying something, that's still using the learning management system as the platform to still do the activity.
Right. So it's been a shift from, paper handouts. You do some of your activities electronically because you're assigning it to the remote learners just as you are your in-person learners. So it's only the tool that's changed, but not the teaching. Well, I guess in some regards, the teaching has changed. But, it's no different than what we would see Ms. Thomas, in a classroom passing out the worksheet for the warm-up as opposed to just jump on the computer, do the warm-up, and then the teacher begins the lesson after assessing that warm-up.
And the other thing, the other bill I want to bring, and it just hits at what some of the comments that the parents or community rang into is about the half days. To me, it costs you the same amount of money to do the half day as it does you to do the full day. So in my opinion, if we lessen those half days to as few as possible, and I spoke to the superintendent about it, she gave me a great rationale of why during the fair week would be a great opportunity. And I'd let her speak to that in a moment. But to me, for the other half days, except for the end of the year, because I see the value in having that there, but any of the other times that the students are half days throughout the year, to me, it's not as valuable to bring them in for 2 or 3 hours, and it costs you the same as it does if they stayed the whole day. And they get the full benefit of being with all of their teachers in all their classes. Because we know we have a great hurdle to catch up from lost instruction. So I am just of the mindset of maybe looking at decreasing some of those early releases, except for, and Dr. Gonzalez, I'll let you speak to the rationale about the beginning ones, because it did make sense to me after you explained it, but to lessen the ones throughout the year.
I didn't see any.
How many do we have?
We don't have any throughout the year, Mr. Green.
There's none.
It's just a
It's at the beginning of the year or the end of the year. Those are the only two spots that they are.
I'm borrowing Mrs. Smoot's thing, and my notes were on mine, and I didn't bring mine, but yeah, and I'll let Dr. Gonzalez speak to about the beginning of school, but I think if we even maybe lessen those some, but I understand it's about fair week, but
I agree with Mr. Breeden in terms of getting the best bang for your buck. Going the full day, I think probably most of us around this table would also agree in concept that that's the best way to do it. But I guess I'll let you.
Well, really what it was a compromise to support a community in the fair. That's what it came down to. And so as long as we're able to offer lunches for the school day, you know, again, our metric is we're able to count it as a full school day. So if that was a way to allow our staff to get out early and our students to get out early to support the fair and encourage some of our FFA kids to go feed their animals, come to school for a few hours, be able to go back and tend to their animals to prep for the showings that evening, we felt like that was a fair estimate, fair act to do. The other piece was we got some feedback from the students. I went around to the students personally and asked them, definitely at all the high school classes, to see what they thought. The governor school students were the only ones who didn't like the half days because they were already in school at the governor's school a week earlier. So they didn't like, but everyone else loved it. They loved the easing it into it, from going from the summer to the easing in. The other teachers who had younger children, they liked easing in their children at the kindergarten age, you know, who had never been a full day at school, and this was the ease-in. And the teachers, and even some of the critics who were critics at first said, okay, I ended up liking this. This was a great way to go over some basics, kind of do some review stuff that first week, kind of lay down the processes and procedures and get the structure in place and review and start teaching. But then you had all that other stuff out of the way, boom, you're ready to start on that Monday. So it was really received positively. Again, like I said, from the students I asked and a lot of the teachers. And again, the thought came from just being a compromise. So how do we support the community and we still need to start school? Because it goes back to what Mr. Benson said. If you don't want to start at the very beginning of August, which we can't financially because it's a whole contract issue. If everybody remembers that discussion from last year, you have to pay everybody again. So we're kind of stuck between that August 14th, 15th time. And then if you want to finish by Memorial Day. Of course, all this can be eased if we want to go into June because then we can shove everything down on the calendar. But that was our compromise back to the community, was doing those half days.
Any other comments or questions?
Well, I would say too, that the board needs, whatever the pleasure of the board is, back to Mr. Grubler's comment of those 3 remote days. If the board decides they want to do away with those 3 days and make it a complete 2-week off, then we have to decide which end of the calendar is it going to go. It's going to go past Memorial Day or start even before Fair Week. So just some things to consider.
Or if we want to make those just in-person days, that's another.
And that can be a thing too. So, you know, we've got some wiggle room. We just need to know what the pleasure of the board is. Because we'll be bringing it to you, I believe, next school board meeting for approval, unless you want to push it off to informational for more discussion later.
What do you think, Dr. Payne?
As a parent, I don't like those 3 days tacked on to Christmas because it's kind of like, what are they really going to assign that they're going to wait 2 weeks to then go back over when they come back after Christmas break? So I would personally think that they need to be 3 in-person days there at Christmas. As an elementary school principal, the fair week, the half days do really help with those little kids, getting them transitioned back because it's the longest day ever. And they are too poop to poop by like 1 o'clock. So it is a good week just to get them adjusted back in. But I also see the point, if you already have them there, why not keep them? Mm-hmm. So there's pros and cons with all of them. But the remote thing does not sit well with me, that phrase. Mm-hmm. So with that, I'd rather those 3 days at Christmas be in person. And if someone wants to leave for vacation early, they just do what they've always done, write the principal, ask for an excuse to go out of town. I mean, that's just me.
Want me to tell you something funny?
Yeah. You used the remote packets for kindling?
70 years ago, the first day of school was half a day. That's it.
Just the first day.
First day was a half a day. But see, we wasn't sending the smaller kids that they are now.
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't have kindergarten.
You started
Well,
in first grade.
And as far as the fair goes, when we started looking at the half a day situation, it was a way of working with the fair people to give them, you know, the kids or whatever. Of course, you know, years ago, if you were at the fair, you were responsible for getting your work in that you missed, and that's how it is now if you're there half day, whole day, whatever. But it is a way of showing that we're really trying to work with the fair. And, you know, I don't want it to go away. I mean, I think it's a great learning experience for all that participate. I'd like to see more get involved, but, you know, like I said, I think it's a kind of a compromise to try to show that we are trying to work. Because it is an educational experience for those who are going. And as far as the 3 days before Christmas, it probably doesn't happen now, but I know when you, let's say on a Wednesday and you were getting out the rest of the week, teachers show videos, and that was way back in the day when videos were popular. They had games, and it's like you said, it's the trendy things that used to happen with the little class parties and all that. That's going away. So if instruction can be going on, they walk away with not having to do a whole lot of anything while they're out, and then when they come back. So it's going to go both ways.
And you have a lot of teacher absences. I mean, if they have personal days, they can use them. And
Do we know how many students that are involved in the ag program that partake in the fair week?
Not this year. Last year we had that number, but I can't remember.
I think it's around 60 students.
Yeah.
That many?
It's a big deal.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
And it's mostly at the high school, correct?
Correct.
well, the little kids
Yeah.
can enter, they can enter games and
Yeah.
sheep and
Yeah,
stuff.
I know a little girl who entered in a sheep,
Yeah, her children do.
and they decorated the little stall. So that was cute.
So back to the 3 remote days before Christmas. I guess I could live with 2 in-person Monday, Tuesday, and then that Wednesday, the 22nd, as a remote, if that was a compromise. But that's about as far as I could go with remote days, I think, just from my perspective.
And for me, I'd like to see as few remote as possible. That's just because the bad taste that is out there. But if we get where it's more, as Dr. Gonzalez had pointed out, that it's more real time, or the lesson's videotaped and the student can watch it later and be more flexible for the parents, that would be great, but not what it is now.
Remote needs a makeover.
Yes,
If it does.
a desperate one. So I'd prefer all in session with the teacher, because I have a niece that's in there, and she normally is an AV student, and she said this is just not working for her. She's gotten very low grades, and she says it's just has changed so much, and she's not getting anything out of the remote as it is right now.
Right.
But I think the ones that they have, like the once a month, they have to have those teacher work days, right? For your PD
Yes.
that you're required to have by the state. So we give remote a new look, they could still have those.
But not if it's real time.
No, it won't be
No.
synchronous. It won't be synchronous then, because they can't, because they're participating.
Yeah. 'Cause which one are they going to do?
Right.
So to eliminate the remote days, we would be adding days on to the end of the school.
No, just make it, you weren't talking about all, like the work days, right?
I think
In
I think we're
person.
doing in person.
But on teacher work days, we'd still,
No, you'd still have to do something different.
yeah, so that could stay as the remote days. But I think what they're talking about is at the Christmas holiday, take the 3, take 2
Gotcha.
of them, do it in person. And 1 remote Wednesday, correct?
Well, that was my compromise. I'm not hearing that. I mean, I'd be fine with all 3 in person. You
I'm
know,
for all
all
in
3,
person.
all 3,
What's everybody else thinking?
That's what I was looking at all three.
all 3, I'm all 3.
Okay, easy enough, we can change it, it still counts as our days, so.
Yeah.
One thing, just to put a bug in your ear, as we're talking about the calendar, we've discussed it as a cabinet, so we don't have it fleshed out at all, but just to put it on your radar, is, as I was saying earlier, to think about what has worked out of the pandemic model. Very little, but there's been some rays of sunshine, right?
Some
Side
successes.
pickup.
Yeah, we gotta look at what has succeeded. So for some of our students, remote learning, virtual learning has worked, okay? And so we can't discount that. We can't go back to what we think is normal and think that's normal for every learning style. That's just us putting our biases out there. So I want us to think as we go forward, what worked, and is there a way to have a virtual learning academy throughout the division where we actually had teachers apply to teach in the academy, so it would be a school, like Page Academy, something like that, where if you're in the 3rd grade, you have a teacher who teaches 3rd grade, but they're not tied to a particular school, they're tied to the academy school, it's a virtual school. For the children who really do learn better that way, or maybe it's just a secondary experience, maybe it's not elementary, but to explore without adding more cost, how can we divvy up how much interest would be involved to do a virtual academy? I know a lot of school divisions are looking at that as well, and I just feel like that at Page, we need to look at for whom this has been successful, but not to be the paper packet model, right? It would be as we're growing our technology and we're getting the Wi-Fi units out there, and we can put criteria, like you have to have internet access, so that the teacher can teach synchronously and when needed asynchronously, but we can make it that true virtual learning experience, but have it as an academy, so it takes off the pressure of our teachers who are balancing both models, because that's not fair to anybody. And it would be their full-time gig, and children would be a part of that particular school environment. So I just want to put that bug out there that that's something we've begun discussions, but we have no numbers or money attached. We don't have anything attached to it yet, but we don't want to just discount all the virtual learning experiences for whom it has worked, and maybe still provide that as just another model, another offering for our children as we go forward.
Key thing would be data on that.
Oh, yeah, we
You know,
did.
you don't have it now, but you would have to have that, because I know there are some students that express it to me, not to have to deal with the social aspects of high school and just be able to do your work. It's a tremendous load off of them.
Right. And to really try to find out what have we done well for the social and emotional, for the interactions, and then really train our teachers who apply to teach that position to really become a master at virtual teaching and interactions and communications, and have like a mascot for it, have it a whole school experience, but really be more intentional with it and not just kind of, this is what we have to do for the pandemic. It could be a very rich experience for some kids, if it's not cost heavy, obviously, to the district.
And that might set us up, if we do something like that, for greater success, if something, God forbid, would ever happen again.
Right, we'd be better prepared, that's for sure.
Better process.
Yeah. So I just wanted to put that bug in your ear.
Well, you wouldn't have to have, what's it called? Homebound instruction. You could just move the student into that.
Into the
You don't have
academy.
to pay an extra.
That's true, and that wouldn't
Good
come as
point.
cost, that's right.
Very good.
I have those at my school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would just move over to
There's
that
that,
and
they could enroll in that school.
subsidize the
Mhm,
cost in that.
exactly.
Good point.
Any other questions or comments about the economy?
Thanks for your work on that.
Yes, sir.
So we'll have a draft ready for you to take action at the next meeting? Based upon the changes and feedback
Do
we
you want to
suggested?
review one more time,
Or
or
would you like to go one more time?
Well, could we review it and then we could move it to the
it
action
could be
next
an
time? if we-
informational item, and then, because
Okay,
Sounds
we've
good.
now moved
That would-
informational before action, so we can just move it down.
And you would post that again, the
Yep.
updated one?
Yeah.
That would be great.
Okay,
All right.
Thank you.
all right, on to the, Ready to Learn by Dr. Gonzalez.
all right, you have before you the high school return plan, but before we start that, I want to give you some background as to why we've had to make a few changes. But originally, we were looking at bringing the children all back 4 days a week from third through 12th, okay? We were just like, can we even do it? What can we do? But to do that, we have to lessen the distance from 6 foot to about 3 foot, okay? And that's from head to head, circumference, and seeing if we had enough room. So all our principals checked. We were looking at our buildings. Some rooms were a little tighter than others, but everybody was hustling because we were the reason we picked March 8th is obviously because that's what the governor's asking the other school divisions who've not even been in school yet to do. And we were like, that gives us a date to shoot for. In the meantime, really, we were planning to move ahead and to bring it to you tonight for the other grade levels. And then the CDC came out with their new guidelines that really stressed the 6 foot distance. And then we had a superintendent's phone call last week with the state superintendent who reiterated the CDC's updated guidelines of really sticking to the 6 foot. So we decided, okay, we need to back off that plan, at least until things change some more. I'm on another call tomorrow morning, and it could change again tomorrow morning. I'll keep you all posted. But right now, we're following that. There are some school divisions that are going down to 3 foot, just so if you hear about it, that is true. But we just felt like the best guidance is right now to stick with the CDC and what the State Department is advising us to do. They call that the gold standard. That's the gold standard. Whenever you bring more children into the building, you have to lessen one of your strategies. So it becomes like this. to raise the benefits of instruction and more in person, then you have to lessen one of your mitigation strategies, which most schools are looking at the distance thing. We're not going to ever give up the masks and things like that, right, and the hand washing. So we kind of put those plans on hold because of the direction from the CDC. But we looked at our data with our high school, and high school is a whole different story. Now, let me back up just a little bit. With the elementary and the middle school, we have made phone calls and we've invited families to fill up the seats that we have available at the 6 feet distance. We don't want any chairs left empty. So we're really reaching out to families, trying to get them in there to at least maximize the seats that we do have now. So everybody's been doing that. With the high school, what we're finding is because these are verified credits for graduation, we do have children for whom the remote learning model is not working. And so if I can draw your attention just a moment to the data sheet that's attached, we gathered data at the end of the semester and how many children were failing one class is stapled to the backside of the high school return plan. It's a paper clip.
No, mine.
She passed it out.
Another copy.
It's this one right
Yeah,
here.
it's that one,
It
So yes, it's that one right there.
Okay, yep.
So, and Blake, you didn't have this part. So right here, you'll see from all our schools, we found out how many had one F, and you can see right there on that page how many we have. The reason we're focusing on high school is because the middle school and elementary schools feel like they have a good handle on what they're doing to remediate kids and get them in line really with being successful. They send out letters, they're making contacts, they're doing home visits. But our numbers seem to be greater at the high school level, and then you go down to 2 Fs. Okay, if you can kind of gloss over those numbers. And then there's the 3 Fs. And now you can see why we're focused on high school right now. Okay? So this is why we kind of changed this plan to be the high school return to learn plan, because we've got to do something a little bit different. And like the young lady said in the video earlier, some children, it's not working to have that much freedom and having to make those decisions and manage their time well. It's not working for them. So we're going to help them out. So here is our parameters. If you'll follow along, and Blake has it up on the screen there, we have our students who are failing more than one class. So we're going to be asking those students, if you're failing more than one class, you have to come in person. They have to come in the school building to get the help. We're not going to punish those who are doing well if they're being successful and they're learning and studying in the evening because they're holding down a job in the middle of the day. That's fine. It's work. Again, we're not trying to punish all children for the few who aren't being successful. So the parameters that we've instructed our principals to do and to go after any children who are failing more than one class to help them. Seniors will be our first priority in getting them back in the building. And then we'll work it down to 9th grade as we have the room and the space for the different classes. Parents have been contacted, burial letters have been sent, phone calls have been made, home visits by the administrators, counselors, and school resource officers, and attendance meetings have occurred. But we're still not seeing academic success like we need to. So they have been hand scheduling students to get to revise it for the students to attend classes on their opposite days. So if they had English first period on an A day, they might have it a third period on a B day, because that's when the teacher's teaching that particular English class. So it's a little wonky, but we've had to hand schedule to make this happen. So we're trying to eliminate as many as possible that would be sitting in the commons in order to have the internet access and the oversight and get them in the classrooms. If the schedule did not work out, that would be when they're assigned to the commons area. For whatever reason, we can't pack another student in there safely. So they will be in this, but we expect them to be at the school. Because again, it's showing they're not being successful on their own, so we're now going to mandate that we help them. New instruction will be occurring. So even though you're an A student, it's new instruction on Monday and Tuesday, and it continues on the B day, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. So and then they'll be doing their assignments on the Wednesday. So, but this will allow them to not only get the new instruction, but also get the help, the makeup time, the support. Synchronous learning is what we're going to be really mandating. And so this is my tidbit from earlier tonight. They will need to be at the building so they can, if they have to be in the commons, they can jump on and have the internet access to jump on. So the teacher will be recording, it will be live. They will be participating with the teacher, whether in the classroom or in the commons, depending on our seating. We're planning for March 8th as the start date. Now, for those who have access at home, they can log in. For those who need to log in from the Commons or log in from another location. But our seniors either have to be in the building or they have to participate in synchronous learning. So essentially, they have to be connected with the teacher at all times now until we can get them back on track. And then currently, LHS has already got 60 kids coming back, and Page County High has about 30, but they're working, as you see the numbers, that doesn't even cut into what we need to have attending. So they're still working on making the contacts. And for the families who, are just completely refusing or whatever, then we're having meetings with them. How are we going to get Johnny to be successful? What's the plan? What is the support's going to be in place? What are they going to do to help us support it if they don't want to participate in these plans here? And again, to reiterate, for students who are not failing, they can jump in synchronously. We're not excluding them, but we're just not mandating it because we've heard that some of our students are holding down some jobs and doing some other things as well. And so again, for the kids who are being successful, then they can do it asynchronously and jump on the recording that will be posted on Schoology, or they can jump in synchronously while the class is happening from the comfort of their home or their grandmothers or wherever they have the internet. But what we're finding is that the jump drives that we've been sending materials home on, which are like in lieu of the paper packets and stuff, we sent out 30 last week, and the next Wednesday is supposed to get them back for feedback and grading. We didn't get one back. So there's such a tremendous lag time with the jump drives that even though we try to accommodate our families, it's not meeting the needs. So now we're going to mandate synchronous learning. And if they don't have the internet at home, then they have to be in the building. And so that's why the administrators are reaching out to find out their situation. And we'll give them a spot in the Commons in the classroom, or they have to get somewhere where they have it, but they need to be attending the class now. Anyone who's failing more than one class.
I just have a question. I'm looking at the back for 3 or more Fs, and at Page County High School, there's a total of 9 through 12, 139. And we're saying right now, 30.
They just started to reach out.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we were just, this last few weeks, we've been trying to decide what model, what we're going to say, what are the parameters, how far can we go with this? And so it took a little bit of planning, but they're now reaching out.
Or that might be a small graduation.
Well, unfortunately, yes, for the seniors, yeah, it's going to knock a few out if we don't get them on track.
Is there a chance, if summer school is an option, do kids ever come back? Like, with a senior who doesn't graduate, will he come back or she come back for the first semester of the following year? Does that ever happen in high school?
No,
Rarely.
no.
Rarely?
Rarely.
Yeah.
You can
We've had
have,
more,
go ahead.
we've had more success with summer graduations.
Summer.
We've had summer
Yeah.
graduations here.
And they're finished in August, though. They don't come
Okay.
back the next semester. That's what I was going to say.
Right,
Yeah.
It's too much of a stigma, I would
Oh,
imagine.
yeah, you don't come back, yeah. So we don't want our seniors, because they're struggling so bad this year, to have to go through that. We want to help them, and so we're kind of laying down the hammer now. We're going to help them, and we're kind of forcing the issue on how we're helping them.
But is summer school looking like a reality at this point?
You want to give a slight update on that?
Yeah, we're at the point where we would like to start to survey staff and see what we have available. At the middle school, I did the recovery meeting last week for the middle school, and that's the group that's has the biggest prospect of summer school right now. At the high school, we're still trying to but talk about how do we get kids there. We are, as part of the recovery efforts, looking at some creative scheduling for next year. I think it's understood that we want to go back to the semester, but right now we're on a 4x4 block, and we've looked at a 5-block schedule. Where we have one block just solely dedicated to academic recovery and different things. Taking a little bit of time off of each of the blocks and putting in that 5th block. Middle school's done the same thing in their schedule. So you're not going to make up the losses in one summer. I think it's understood too. Realistically, you're not going to get kids there to sit in the seat all summer as well. So I can say at the middle school level, we're looking at there's approximately 9 weeks in between the end of the school year and the start of when staff comes back, 3-week sessions, and having students come based upon the number of subjects that they're failing. There is a policy here in Page County that talks about promotion and retention. As we discussed at our last meeting, we're not in a situation to have a whole lot of retentions either for staffing purposes. So we've got to kind of be creative in some of the things that we're doing.
Understood.
And budget, how does the budget fall into that?
I've mentioned that to Dr. Gonzalez last week. Typically, Summer school has run us $60,000-$70,000. You're probably, if you run summer programs at all three levels, you're looking at $250,000.
Yep.
And is that in the budget now, or is that something? has to
It's
be
with the
added?
grant money, the ESSER two money that we were awarded. We've allocated some of that to go towards whatever
So you
learning
allocate
loss.
that. That's good.
Yeah, so we have it from the government, yes.
Have that much?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we got awarded 2.8, and so out of that, we're dedicating it to learning loss
That's good,
initiatives.
that's good to know.
And the
Yes.
timing is right too.
Yes,
You wouldn't
Yes.
want to wait to spend.
exactly. Yeah, we're not waiting because we got to take care of it now.
You have to pay an hourly rate that's attractive for teachers to want to be able to do it too.
Yeah.
That's true.
Teachers have worked hard this school year, and it's not, they deserve a break as well. And so, there's gonna be competition, all school divisions are gonna be having summer school. We've seen upwards, some of our neighboring school divisions are paying $40 an hour for summer school.
Wow.
Okay, so the budget that we set aside, are we having contingency for that?
We're gonna be in the ballpark.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're going to be competitive.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks to the
Yep.
government.
Now, one quick question I've got on it. This is great. I mean, this is detailed information. I mean, kudos that we put it together and how you guys came up with it. If I'm the governor, I want to see this from every school division. Because you need to really know what we've done
Yeah.
with this pandemic and how we've handled it.
Well, I don't know
I mean,
if
that-
we want to see that number.
Well, I mean, but they need to have feedback on what it's done to our students.
Well, and I
That's
think
what
they
it
need the
means.
feedback to know that virtual for us isn't virtual, it's remote.
It's
And what does
remote, right.
remote look like and
Right.
the impact it has on students' learning and what we're having to do. I would agree with that. And believe me, I yield that trumpet every time I have a
You
platform.
should,
I
because these numbers are staggering.
I make sure they know that about Page County. I do, that virtual is not virtual for us.
The only thing I want to add, and Ross spoke to it about other surrounding ones that are also bringing all the students back within the 3-foot parameter. What is our goal ultimately with the rest of the students for them to come back as well?
Ultimately, we'd love 4 days a week. We still need the Wednesdays because regardless, you have some families who have chosen full remote regardless. And if their child's doing well, they get that option, right? So you have to afford that Wednesday. Our poor teachers are still juggling everything. And that is what the other school divisions are doing. I was just on a call today with a few of them. That's what they're doing. A couple of them are taking it to their school boards. One is doing it tonight as well about the lessening it down to 3 foot, which means also on your buses. And so the ramifications of that, one is going against the recommendation the CDC says, and that VPH isn't quite on board with that yet. And then from what the state told us to look at the CDC guidelines. So it's a matter of who y'all want to go with. But also, because we're not having outbreaks in schools, right? The people are getting it for the most part out in the community. Our numbers of staff who are positive have gone down from the 40 some we had over the holidays down to about 10 right now. So it's picking up in the community. So the school's a safe place. According to Dr. Green, that's the one place we can
Outside of
control.
sports.
Right, not sport, but that's true, and that's the risk they're taking on that. But schools are a very contained, controlled environment for students. So when you get someone who tests positive, then you just got to understand, the more that we're putting in a classroom at a smaller distance, and the more that are sitting on a bus, it's just more you have to quarantine. But like you said, we have a rhythm with the remote, albeit it's not the best, but there is a rhythm with it that people are able to go in and out of these models pretty regularly. So again, that was our goal by March 8th, was to have everybody going 4 days a week. Now, the high school couldn't really go 4 days a week in the true sense that we're saying that's 4 days a week because of the tech center. They flipped it. So if you're an A student, you go to tech center on the B days. If you're a B student, you go to class on the A. So they'll never be quite the 4 day unless what we're doing now. Like we're bringing them in and we made up a different schedule and they're going totally different schedule on a Thursday, Friday than they're doing on a Monday, Tuesday by hand scheduling. But so that in hindsight, had we known that, we probably would have done something a little different. But at the time, you've never flown this plane before. You're figuring, that's the easiest way to fix the tech center issue.
You're
So-
building the airplane, it's still flying.
Yeah, we were still flying it. So in hindsight, we might have done that one differently, but that one is what it is. But we found a workaround with all the failures. This is what we're doing now. But our goal is to eventually get our children back 4 days a week, at least for the remainder of the year. But, I'm just laying it out there for you to let you know what other school divisions are doing, what guidance we're being given, what our thoughts were, why we pulled back, and where we're at now. But certainly the board, you know, we can continue these discussions because we would like to get our kids 4 days a week back into the buildings and do it safely.
I appreciate those efforts.
Thank you. But that is our goal. Ultimately, that's our goal. That's what we're working towards. We were hoping it was going to be March 8th, but it might still be. It all depends what it all changes with the governor and the state superintendent and CDC, right?
So much for them saying, get all students back to school.
Yeah. Well, for them, they want it to be at least some in-person learning opportunities. Some of our school divisions are not even to the point that we've been at since we started. We're ahead of it we kind of led the pack. This area, this region, and the state was really leading the pack as far as students going back to school. Frederick, Winchester, Shenandoah, Warren, us, we all were getting our kiddos back in there pretty quickly.
So as of right now, we're going back March the 8th for the high school.
For the high schools, this is all these parameters will be in place. So when I say in person, it's synchronous learning. Whichever way they need to do it, they got to get somewhere, they got to get in the building, and we're making room for them to be in the building.
And what about the middle school?
The middle school, they've worked out their schedule. It's not 4 days a week for them, but they don't have quite as many failures, and they've got things in place to help their failing kids now, and so do the elementary school. Because we were going 4 days a week, and then we had to pull back, but they've got models in place to provide the remediation necessary for the students. They feel confident.
We're out of room at the middle school, truly. The classrooms are full.
Okay.
If we're gonna if we were to try to put any more, we would be sacrificing the social distancing.
Right. And that's the piece that we got to come to at some point. If the board decides we're going to sacrifice distance to get kids in, then that's what we do at some date and you decide that. But at least to what I was saying earlier, they've made those phone calls. They filled up every empty seat they could with the 6 feet in mind. That's what he's talking about. They're packed right now with the 6 feet distance. But if we did a 3 foot distance, then you can bring in more, but you're sacrificing that. And if you ever have to quarantine, then you quarantine 4 people.
So I'm gonna just ask a question, and you don't have to answer it, but how did the middle schools come together to make this stuff happening already, that they're ahead of the curve? Is that something they worked on collaboratively, or?
Well, yes, they're always collaborating. That's one thing we've worked on here in the division. We do collaborate a lot now. But it's also that they maximized their 6 feet, where the high schoolers didn't come back running like the other kids did. When we opened those seats up,
Okay.
the high schoolers are a different breed. They're a little bit more independent. And so the seats just naturally filled up with parents wanting their children back in the buildings.
I think it's also important, Mr. Painter, to note that, we've got a lot of high school students that are working
Yes.
and not attending school. And, that's not the case for middle school.
Right.
So when you're out earning a salary and the money's attractive, I'm just gonna be honest, there's some kids making some really good money right now. You're not as quick to say, oh, I'm gonna want to come back to school for in-person learning. So I think it's been a little bit of a harder sell to get kids back in the building at the high school level, simply because of that as well.
But isn't it against the law for an employer to hire a student when they are supposed to be in school?
Well, we weren't doing synchronous learning. So see, it wasn't,
Well, I understand
yeah,
that.
but now with synchronous learning,
But
it's
now
going to
that
be a
it's gone
problem.
back into school,
Yeah.
they have to be in school. They can't be working, or that employer
Yeah,
is in jeopardy.
yeah. Well, and we're making the concession where they're being successful, we'll let that
Right.
fly.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
right now, we have
We
to
should be
prioritize
successful.
academics have to come before the job.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we're gonna be the mean guys that
Yeah.
kind of do the tough love and help them get to that finish
It's gotta be
line.
done.
Yeah, so,
But I think you're on that spot because I know back in the day, it's been a while and I'm sure they've changed things, but when you apply for a worker's permit, you could only work so many hours. And within certain hours. So now if that was loosened up because of the pandemic and they could work from 11 to 4, that may be different. But now that school's coming back, the expectation is underneath the attendance law that you're back in school. So that's unfortunate, and maybe some families were counting on that extra income because of mom and dad maybe have lost their job, unfortunately. So there is definitely a hardship there that may, have an impact that we may not necessarily know.
but we're going to know because we're having those conversations with our students who aren't being successful because we have to have a plan.
Okay.
to help them be successful.
Mhm.
I'm not to say that we won't make some, depending on the family situation, but as a whole, this is what we're going after to help our
As
students.
long as the, I mean,
I just did a quick little search here though, and I think it's important to note, you can be 16 or 17 and you can work 40 hours a week per the
But if
Virginia
you're-
workers.
but if you aren't in school at all,
Even if you're in school, you can still work that amount of hours.
1 week while attending school.
right,
Well,
and I
attending
guess what I'm saying is, are they doing any schoolwork at all? If they're not, and they're just solely working,
Yeah.
I don't think you can get by with it.
That's been the balance, you know,
Yeah.
think about a 16 or 17-year-old trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
And I think we know the answer to that based on these numbers.
We're trying to take away one option here.
And I know how co-op programs work, and that's not in there at all, but if they're just, I'm not going to school, I'm going to work.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
And we're also trying to be very clear with our families that there are no waivers. Unfortunately, some of our administrators feel like that our families think that, oh, because of the pandemic, last year we got waivers, you didn't have to get all your verified credits. And we're telling people the waivers are not in play this year. You have to pass, you have to earn your grades, and you have to do the assignments. And unfortunately, they will be retained if they don't do their part that they need to do. So we're going to help them.
And Mr. Benson, that has changed since the time that I dealt with it. Because that's a lot of increase in hours from the time that I was not able to work.
Sure.
Any other questions on the return to learn update?
Thank you for the
Yeah, it's great information.
You're certainly welcome.
Okay, and on to the graduation plan update.
Right, so we've been, we know the need that our children have to have traditions. We recognize that. So we wanted to update the community to make sure they understood the parameters under which we were working and what we're planning for the future. And certainly would want, their input as well as they've been giving us here, as we heard tonight. But the reason we planned the virtual graduation, one, we don't know what the future is going to hold for us. And we did not want to come up short with our students. We did not want to put all our eggs in a basket and say, we're going to have an outdoor graduation, and then we don't, and then they have nothing. We learned that from last year in trying to put something together for the students. It was well received, the virtual video ceremony for the students with the banners and the yard signs and all that, and the intimacy from having such an intimate experience with their families, albeit completely different, but we got a lot of praise for that video. So we, trying to be proactive and not reactive, had scheduled it to be taped in April. You see the dates there, and that's kind of the schedule. So we had to go ahead and secure the videographer to make, because he's so busy, we just wanted to schedule it and have it in play. What a great memento to have if we can still have an outdoor graduation come May. So in the meantime, you look what you get. You get the souvenir too to go with it. But we just wanted to make sure they didn't get cut short of absolutely everything. So we wanted to repeat that. So those are the dates. But in addition to that, we can certainly have an outdoor ceremony, but we wanted to lay out the parameters to make sure everybody understood what that entails. They're confusing the BHSL rules with the governor's rules, okay? The governor's executive order number 72, as it stands right now, says that only 10 people who are non-family members can be together for celebrations and social gatherings, as I've cited here at the bottom of this paper. Graduation is a celebration, not an educational learning setting. And so that's the distinction. Now, it could be interpreted, some superintendents are saying, well, if they allow 250 at a football game, surely we should be able to do it at graduation. But none of that's been given. And because we're a school division that obeys the laws of the land and the mandates from our governor, the mandate as it stands right now it's for 10 people. Now, if that ever expands, then we can always be ready for that. So here's some of our plans we have in place. That we could plan the outdoor graduation in addition to the virtual tape-in. We would release the virtual tape on the 22nd, and 22nd is their original graduation date. Let's make that the outdoor graduation date. We just stick to it. Then, but that's only if we can have more than 10 people. So let's say they give us 250. Let's say they do it by the football game rules, and they say, okay, you can have 250. All right. And believe me, once we know we can, we will move forward with all of that. So here's kind of how we have it laid out. Things to consider. There is no internet at Bulldog Field. So live streaming is not going to be an option. And because again, we're going to be limited by how many people show up. So people have to understand, you might want the virtual videotape as well because we're not going to be able to live stream. We had reached out to the town to try to get those trailer hotspots that are about $10,000 a pop, and
That's
we
the
haven't.
counties.
So we're trying to get something over there, but we haven't heard back, and it doesn't look good that we'll get anything. So, but it's something we're working on. People could Facebook Live it off their own phones. It just won't be quality work to share with their families, but that's the workaround when you don't have live internet. So things to consider. That's one of our parameters. Then we could go on regardless of the weather conditions unless there's lightning, just like this other gentleman said, you know. And back in the day before the high schools were built, my understanding is there was one graduation where y'all did it in 10 minutes because it would start to lightning and everybody was going across the stage so fast. But we want it to be a more special experience. But it can be like what y'all did before we had the big gyms where you did it outside regardless of the weather and unless it was lightning. So we can just plan on that. A backup date's a little harder when you have people coming in from out of town and the following weekend's Memorial Day weekend. So we can just say, regardless, the show goes on unless it's lightning at the field. Again, we can't move it indoors because then your numbers become more restrictive. But the other thing people have to realize is the graduating class, as long as we get them all to pass, is 126. So if you do 250, if they go with the football rules, 250 only gives you 2 persons per graduate. It's not the uncles and the aunts and grandma and grandpa and little siblings. And even then we're coming up short. You notice 126 times 2. So somebody's not getting a ticket. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we've got that parameter. They would be considered the spectators because then if they go by the sporting rules, then the graduates would be participants and all of us would be the participants as well. Okay. Then Page County High School has 147. So already you can't get 2 tickets per graduate if it's the 250 number, even being outside. That's what I need everybody to understand, because we're obeying the laws and the mandates, okay? So that's what we're looking at. But we could do it by cohorts. So if it doesn't go higher than 250, we're suggesting the cohorts. You could do the A group and you could do the B group. And so we were presenting, normally it's at 10 and 3, right? And this is the year for Luray to go first. So Luray would be, if you had one group would be at 10 and the other page would be at 3. But we could do the cohorts. We could do cohort A, the A kids, at 9 a.m., do it for an hour. That would give us time to spray down the chairs and all the seating to disinfect. And then we could get the 11 a.m. B group in. Then that would give us enough time to catch our breaths between all the sessions. And it's not at the heat of the day. Then stick with the 3 p.m. slot. Do that session with the A group, the A students. And then we could disinfect in between with the sprayers, all the seating and all the things people are touching. And then at 5 p.m. do the next session. And again, it wouldn't be in the complete heat of the day, okay? So it's kind of like we can plan it. So virtual, we want to keep on the table. We feel like that's money well spent for memento, or it's how it's going to be for graduation. But we can still have an outdoor graduation, but we've got to be ready to flip it depending on what the numbers are. But we feel like we've got a couple contingencies in place. Setting up for it, as a lot of our family members were saying today, it's not a matter of it's so complicated. It's not complicated. It's just a matter you just got to be ready to switch gears depending. The only complicated piece really for us, because we're so used to doing health mitigation strategies and setting up and distancing, really what I was talking to Ms. Moran today, it's just how many people are coming, is it 2, is it 1, and then just having the seating marked out in the bleachers so everyone does stay the distance apart. And just being able to plan who's sitting where, and if we do just plan 2 for everybody. So just that logistical piece is probably a little bit harder. But after that, you set up, you distance people out, you have the mitigation strategies in place like we do every school day. That is not a problem. We can do that. We can make it very memorable for them. Not a problem. It really comes down to what the state says we can do with the number of people and kind of flip on a dime on what we can do to make it happen for the kids.
So how did the sports get 250, but yet graduation can't have but 10?
Well, they're just saying social gatherings right now. Now, see, we can get clarification from the governor through the state superintendent if he'll clarify for graduations. He hasn't gone on the record to say that there is an exception for graduations yet. So we have to go by the rules as they stand now. VHSL got the exceptions for what they needed at the time. it just hasn't hit their radar yet that we're thinking that far ahead for graduation. You know, a lot of them don't even happen until June, so they think they have time. But we superintendents will start bringing it up to get clarification. And as we get clarification, we're ready to roll with whatever direction, depending on the numbers.
Just ask them all a math problem as they come across 2 + 2, and they say 4, and then you get instructional set.
Test them and quiz them on the
Yeah.
way out the door. Yeah, we can do that.
But I like the AB scenario that you talked about as a sort of a plan B.
Yeah, it's a contingency.
Yeah.
Would that allow them to have more people?
Yeah, yes, depending on what the limit is. You know, again, we're playing with the unknown right now, so
Right.
we're just thinking, okay, if it's still 250, then to get more in, let's just do A children and the B children, so they can have a couple more people with them. But again, we just have to do the math and see how many are ending up on an A or an B day and work it from there. So a few more logistics, but it's not a matter of being too hard for us. That's not the thing. It's a matter of not knowing what we're allowed to do to make it happen. So we're starting the process now, as you can see, and then we'll just adjust as we go forward.
And when is the next call with the state superintendent?
I have one tomorrow with him, all superintendents do, but they have other things on the agenda. I've already looked at it. This was not one of them, so I'll be putting in the chat box to get that discussion going.
Any other comments from Lance, Eric, or anybody else on this idea? No.
Yeah, it's really gonna come down to what we're allowed to do. That's really what.
Yeah, we're ready to do whatever, it's just we don't know yet what that is.
Keep us informed.
And just know that we do work together as a team planning all this out, so this is what we got so far. So we'll certainly take other ideas and we'll definitely, ask parents to help us as we need the help and input, so if they have other ways to think. I just need the community to understand the parameters and the unknowns that we're working with, and, but certainly we're open to ideas.
So it sounds like that if parents want the restrictions lifted, to get it just like the football game,
Right,
they need to start contacting their state legislature and the governor
so we can get some.
to make that change. And they need to start doing that now.
Mhm,
Good point.
mhm.
So it's,
And I will, as superintendent, be stirring the pot too, because all of us are gonna be facing the same, all of us are facing the same thing. We need clarity.
To not.
yeah, it's not new to us.
And it's got to be a difference than just social media, which you get all kinds of stuff. You need a focused email, phone calls, not just some kind of random comment that's
But
political all the time.
I can say too that when the superintendents ask, we're asking for the community and they will listen to us. So it's just a matter, it hasn't come up in discussion yet. So I would say before everybody just bombards them completely, just let us have a moment to have that discussion among the superintendents with the governor. We need goodwill coming our way. And, but we certainly advocate for students. And I just want the community to know that that is what we do. We want this to happen. We want more kids back in school. We want all these things, but we also have to listen to what they're telling us. But we are advocates for us.
Any other questions about the graduation plan update, comments? All right, now on to our action items. Approval for claims for payment, Ms. Secrets?
Good evening, members of the board. You all have been provided with the claim certification, which does look a little bit different this evening. Due to the weather that we received on Thursday and Friday, the check run that would have normally been presented to you all this evening was not ready because we were out of the office. So we will be providing that to you retroactively at the next meeting. But you all can see there the 2 payrolls for the month, the bi-monthly payroll for the end of this week, and then the one retroactively that was already paid on the 15th. But I will provide you with the claim certification with that, as well as a list of claims in that check register, along with the other check run that would take place for the month of March.
Any questions? All right, I have a motion for approval of the claims for payment.
I make a motion that we approve the claims for payment as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Dr. King.
Yes.
Mr. Bugler.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Breeden.
Yeah. Approval for a resolution for rollover funds Seacrest.
Yes, I will read this into record. It is a little lengthy, so bear with me. Resolution to the Page County Board of Supervisors requesting reappropriation of fund balance from FY20 school budget. Whereas Robinson Farmer Cox Association has completed the audit for fiscal year 2020 and provided financial information pertaining to the component unit school board via the 2019-2020 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, CAFR, and whereas the Page County Public School is prohibited by law in ending the fiscal year with a negative balance, therefore each year there is some operational savings referred to as the fund balance. Whereas the fiscal year 2019-2020 school operating budget had an approved appropriation of county funds of $11,032,658, and whereas the actual amount transferred to meet budgeted expenditures was $9,505,979, which is $1,526,679 less than the budgeted amount as reflected on the schedule of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances on Exhibit 32 of the CAFR. And whereas the fund balance is primarily due to expenditures which were less than budgeted as a result of changes in operations at the end of the fiscal year due to COVID-19, schools were closed on March 13th, 2020 and remain closed through the end of the school year, resulting in operational savings. And whereas state revenue projections for FY20 were uncertain due to the economic impact of COVID-19, and the Virginia Department of Education was estimating a significant decline in sales tax revenue for May and June 2020. Therefore, PCPS deferred certain large expenditures in anticipation of a potential revenue shortfall. And whereas when the reconvened session of the General Assembly adjourned, divisions were notified on April 29th, 2020 that direct aid appropriations and division distributions would not be changed for FY20. It was too late to initiate purchases for goods to be delivered prior to the end of the fiscal year. Now therefore be it resolved that the Page County School Board respectively requests that the Page County Board of Supervisors to reappropriate $856,009 of the fund balance to the FY21 school budget for the following purposes. $309,009 for the replacement of 3 school buses. 2 of the buses have blown engines. 1 engine cannot be rebuilt, and the cost of the other far exceeds the value of the bus that exceeds the recommended 15-year replacement cycle. And $547,000 for the purchase of new English language arts curriculum, kindergarten through 5th grade, to ensure alignment of state standards. This purchase was originally planned for FY20 but was deferred due to the uncertainty of state revenues due to COVID-19. The Page County School Board requests the remainder of the FY20 fund balance, $670,670, be reappropriated to the FY22 school budget for needed capital improvement projects as scheduled in the division's approved FY21 through FY31 capital improvement plan and be included in the superintendent's recommended FY22 budget. Below is the financial table. This is to certify that the foregoing resolution was authorized by the Page County School Board in its regular session on Monday, February 22nd, 2021. Thank you.
Question.
Sure.
This is not a fund balance that was missing from the 2 years. This is just from the 20 school year,
Yes.
Right. It's the rollover from this past year.
not the.
Not the prior 2
Nothing
years
prior
where
to
we
that,
didn't
to,
get anything.
Okay.
Right.
yes.
I just wanted to make sure that,
Right. Just this past year, and that's how much that should roll over to us.
and you're asking that for those 2 items and then the other 670 be put for
In the capital improvement, as we had that gentleman's agreement with the board, when we had that work session, if the other board members remember, we had that sessions.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
The bus for 309, does that include the seat belts?
It does.
It does. Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the resolution of rollover funds.
Second?
I have a motion and a second.
Mr. Kramer.
Yes.
Dr. Kramer.
Yes.
Mr. Bugler.
Yes.
Mr. Lansbury.
Yes.
Mrs. Salisbury.
Yes.
Mr. Breeden.
Yes.
Motion
And we have your sample, the E-rate wide area network project.
All right, good evening, board members. Bid evaluations for the wide area network were performed in preparation for your approval of a selected vendor at this meeting. We received 3 bids for this item from CenturyLink, or Lumen as they are now referred to as they change brand names. One from Chantel and one from WANRAC. All 3 vendors presented solutions that met the requested specifications and would be compatible with our infrastructure. So the selection came down to the points awarded for pricing. We have preferred to contract at 3-year intervals in the past couple of agreements, but do leave the option open to vendors to propose longer-term contracts if they can prove the cost effectiveness of doing so. We received options from our preferred 3 years all the way up to 10 years with varying levels of cost effectiveness. I did provide some handouts in your folders, so if you look to those, you can see on the first one for the proposals for 3-year terms, we have solutions from both CenturyLink/Lumen and WANRAC. In order to compare proposals evenly to prove cost effectiveness, 10 gigabit solutions were chosen to compare against each other, since that's what we had from all vendors. And looking at the bottom 2 proposals on this page, you can see that Lumen is the more cost-effective solution when taking into account all costs. On the 5-year contracts page, you can see that the 3 solutions compared against each other at equal service levels. And again, Lumen is the most cost-effective solution when taking into account all costs. Additional contracts beyond 5 years, which we received 2 bids, both one at 7 and one at 10, are not as cost-effective as the ones at 3 or 5. Based on this evaluation and the points awarded shown on the point matrix sheet at the end, in your handouts, we would like to select CenturyLink/Lumen as our service provider. They presented a solution that met requested specifications and at a price superior to the competition. We would be looking at signing a 3-year contract for a 2 gigabit service for all locations, with the exception of the Luray High School athletic field, which would be provided at a 1 gigabit service, which would definitely meet the needs of this site with no issues. And Page High, which is already connected to Page Middle with our fiber, so there's no cost incurred for that. And Page Middle, which has to receive the connections from each of the other sites, would be at a 20 gigabit connection. And if you have any questions, which I'm sure there will be, I'll do my best to answer them.
So we're looking at a 3-year?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, maybe I'm not looking, but I don't see Page County High School.
Page County High School is not listed on any of these because we don't pay for it because we own the fiber that goes between Page Middle and Page High.
I understand, no problem. Okay.
So that's why the middle school's higher than.
Correct. The middle school has to accept all of the connections from all other sites in the county.
Yep.
So it has to have basically the sum of the parts of the rest of the county in order to handle all of the sites transferring at their maximum throughput.
It's like the hub.
Correct.
Yeah.
I understand the cost factor, but will the service be good?
Yes, ma'am. The CenturyLink and Lumen is the provider that we have currently, and we've had it for the last 6 years. There are times, I will grant you, where we do lose internet, but it's not anything that's happened within the confines of Page County. Now, this service that we're talking about right now is the wide area network. That's the connection between our schools within the division. So basically, whenever we've lost internet, that's been somewhere else on the eastern seaboard, somewhere up in Northern Virginia, down in South Carolina, or Chicago, or something like that.
And I'm basing my concern on at least 2 to 3 years ago, we lost phone service and didn't have any phone service like at Page County High School and some of the other places, and it seemed like it took forever, but if it's better, and I understand what you're saying with the internet, it's different, whatever, but service is everything. I mean, cost is important, but taking care of problems sells the
Correct, yeah. Since we switched over to a VoIP phone, internet phone-based service, our telephone services for all the schools rely on having internet. So if we lose internet, by no fault of our own from somewhere else in the country, we lose internet, we also lose phones. So, and I just go back to say where I said that, we've never had anything, knock on wood, happen within the confines of Page County that has disrupted our service. It's always been something outside of our control, somewhere else in the country.
And you're proposing the 3-year term,
Yes, sir.
and the reasons for that.
So going back the last 2 3-year contracts that we've signed, I've found that 3 years kind of seems to be the sweet spot as far as just referencing our internet contract last year. We doubled our service for basically the same amount that we were already paying. The 3-year contract that I was proposing that we go with, it gives us about 3.5 times the speed of what we currently have at all of these school locations for basically only the extra price of adding the athletic field site. So about a $1,500 increase per month.
All right.
I have a question. They're not numbered in any way, so I have the one for CenturyLink, but there's CenturyLink at the top, CenturyLink at the bottom, and then CenturyLink again on the next page, and then WinRack on the next. What are those different from?
So you're looking at the 3-year contract one, the 3-year term?
Yeah.
So the first 3, and the reason why I listed them, we initially asked for 1 gigabit and 2 gigabit proposals.
Okay.
We received 10 gigabit proposals from Shentel, and WinRack could kind of do here anywhere from 1 to 100 at the same price point. So I chose 10 gigabit to compare them against, just to have apples to apples. But the reason you're seeing multiples from CenturyLink and Lumen is because the first one is their 1 gigabit service. The second one is the 2 gigabit service. The first one on the second sheet is their 10 gigabit service. And then the last one is WinRack's. So it gives you three different pricings on 3 different services to look at. But because I got 10 gigabit from one and then kind of a 1 to 100 from the other, I just sat and chose 10 gigabit to prove the cost effectiveness.
And what is the current division need?
So
what are the usage?
So right now, we have 2 gigabit up and down for internet. That is what we have available for internet bandwidth. But then you also have to take into consideration where not everything goes out to the internet. We have communication between schools. So right now each school has 600 megabit of speed. Now I can't tell you, because we're not in a typical scenario this year, whether we're bumping up against that because we don't have everybody in. But I can tell you next year, if we go back to 5 days a week and in person, all the devices that we've handed out this year, we're going to need that extra at each school.
And the virtual learning.
And the virtual learning, correct. Now, we only have 2 gigabits of internet, so we can monitor that usage. We're talking about having 2 gigabit of internet available at each site, but only having a 2 gigabit pipe at the hub site at Page Middle for everybody to use. So we'll have to monitor that pretty closely next year. Thankfully, we did include in our contract last year that if we want to go upgrade our service to a higher bandwidth for our internet, we do have the option of doing so. So we just have to monitor that.
And what would be the advantage to go to the 10? I mean, I see the cost difference. It's just basically almost double from the 1 gigabyte and not that much from going from 2 to 10. So which one is the recommendation?
2 gigabit. And the reason I say that is, one, it's more cost effective, it's cheaper than the 10 gigabit. Truly, I don't believe we're going to use a 10 gigabit service at this particular point in time.
We have the option to go up.
We do have the option to go up. That is in the RFP, so we do have the option to go up. Another consideration for that is our current equipment. So our current equipment, what we have, is only capable of handling 10 gigabit connections. So back at Page Middle, where everything comes together, if we go to a 10 gigabit connection for all of our sites, then you have to have a 100 gigabit connection at Page Middle in order to accept all, if everybody's transferring at max throughput, you have to have that big, and those switches that we would then have to purchase are not cheap at all.
Yeah.
So that was another consideration to, would we have to then go out and purchase something additional that we would then have to, factor in the cost for? Whereas the 2 gigabit, we just can use it with what we have right now.
And what is going to be put in place to monitor the need?
We have the ability to monitor our internet bandwidth, so we'll see what's coming through. So, and if that starts getting tapped out, then we'll know, we need to upgrade.
Okay.
There's reports on all those things, show
Yeah.
what's coming in and out.
Yes, so the CenturyLink, and it was in their RFP that whoever is selected does have to provide a means for us to accurately monitor our bandwidth.
That's good.
Okay. All right, do you have a motion
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that
to approve the 2 gigabyte, 3-year term?
I was gonna say all that.
Oh, okay, all right.
So I want to make a motion that we approve the Lumen 2 gigabyte plan for the 3 years per Mr. Blake's, Mr. Samples.
Have a motion and a second?
Dr. Painter.
Yes.
Mr. Cooper.
Yes.
Mr. Ryan Thayer.
Yes.
Mr. Painter.
Yes.
Mrs. Sullivan.
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, on to board discussion time. Anything that the board,
I have two things real quick. First, I want to do a shout out to the Luray High School girls basketball state champions. Yeah. Thank you for your hard work, your dedication, and you represented your high school to the highest and also the county and the surrounding areas. We couldn't be more proud.
Amen.
And also, I just want to bring to the board's attention, you received an email today from the VSBA, and this is for out there, anyone listening. We are being asked to contact our legislators here in Virginia and oppose the bill SB 1303, which is, if it's passed, it would remove local control over school division instruction decisions for the 21-22 academic year. You don't want that to happen, and we don't want that to happen. So please contact your delegate and tell them to vote no for the Senate Bill 1303. That's all.
anyone else have any?
I do. Chairman Breeden and board members, first of all, I'd like to thank you all for your service, as February is School Board Appreciation Month. I can vouch that it is a thankless job, but I know that we're all trying to make a difference. Also, last week was VSBA School Board Clerk Appreciation Week, so I believe we'd all like to express thanks to Linda Breeden-Wallace and Kim Burton for their valuable roles with assisting school board members, superintendents in our local schools. I decided to prepare a written statement to review some recent events and reminders without interruption. When I attended VSBA training for new board members in January of 2020, I was presented with protocols for school board members and school board chairmen. Here are some takeaways from that training copied directly from the VSBA's PowerPoint. In regards to the role of the school board sees that schools are well managed but does not manage them directly. Policies are assigned to the school board to approve, focus on the big picture and legal compliance, whereas regulations are assigned to the superintendent for details and local control. In regards to the role of the chairman, the chair is the team builder and caretaker of relationships. Run participative but efficient meetings. Be humble, do not be dazzled by a title, keeping your ego in check. Stay at the strategic level, don't get into management. I'd also like to highlight number 5 and number 6, of the VSBA Code of Ethics for school board members as well, that the entire PCPS school board signed last month. Number 5, I will delegate authority for the administration of the schools to the superintendent and establish a process for accountability of administrators. Number 6, I will encourage individual board member expression of opinion and establish an open two-way communication process with all segments of the community. Why am I addressing these key points? After our budget work session last week, I received an email from our chair, Mr. Breeden, on Wednesday, February 17th at 8:31 p.m. I will provide you all with a copy of the email as well as my response, but here's an excerpt that I would like to speak specifically about. If you continue to show disrespect and contempt for me as a board member, as you did during this meeting and other meetings in an open forum, I will not be so kind in my response back to you in an open forum next time. This was a direct quote from Mr. Breeden's email to me. At the budget meeting last week, I spoke to the roles and duties of the board. Mr. Breeden deliberately took the time after the meeting to craft an email to personally threaten and intimidate me to speak again in opposition to him. If I recall, I also had the support of Mr. Gubler at that meeting. It is concerning to me if no other board members received an email of this nature. Sending emails to a board member threatening them not to speak in open session is appalling. Mr. Breeden, using your position on the board to intimidate and provide directives is outside of your role as the chairman, and is disrespectful and unprofessional to members of the board, as well as PCPS staff. I will also assume that I was not being targeted because I'm one of the 2 women on the board. Finally, I'd like to remind everyone about the required FOIA training that our chair reminded us to participate in this past month. Directly from the FOIA training is an outline of what constitutes a meeting. According to FOIA, a meeting is defined as any gathering of 3 or more members of a public body at which the public business of the body was discussed. In this email, which included 3 members of the board, specifically spoke of business we discussed in the budget meeting, the adoption of textbooks. Therefore, it must be declared a public meeting and subject to FOIA. If it pleases the board, I'd like this email string to be added to board docs as a meeting and suffice as meeting minutes to be approved with all February minutes. Since Mr. Breeden called the meeting by sending it to me and Ms. Sullivan-Smoot in order to follow FOIA guidelines. So here's a copy of the email.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, do you have a motion for adjourn?
I move that we adjourn the meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second?
Mr. Gubler.
Yes.
Mr. Lansdale.
Yes.
Mr. Fanger.
Yes.
Yes. Mrs. Sullivan-Smoot.
Yes.
Mr. Breeden.
Yes. Meeting's adjourned.